Services ONS meeting. It is now 7 p.m. and I would like to start the meeting. I'm Councillor Rigby and I'm the chair of this committee. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council's website. Item 1, apologies for absence. Claire, have any apologies been received?
There's no apologies been received, Chair, but I understand Janet Simon is attending for Sheila Murphy.
Thank you.
And, Michelle Lucas is attending virtually, so she's online with us.
Thank you. Item 2, minutes. On the 16th of January 2024 minutes, it is noted that the Vice Chair requested an amendment to the 16th of November 2023 minutes, and Councillor Carter stated his intention to challenge the accuracy of this requested amendment. The matter was raised at full council and has been referred back to this committee to consider. I have now watched the recording of the November meeting, and in my view the following is said at minute 7.51. The Vice Chair asked the portfolio holder for education, "Have you visited the school, Councillor Carter?" And the portfolio holder for education responded, "No, not Thameside." Would all members agree this rewording?
Yes, thank you. Yes, but then Councillor Carter was also asked what had he specifically done to ensure that the children were being housed in appropriate accommodation, and at no time did he say that he'd visited any of the other schools. So the impression was that he'd visited none of the schools, which was the amendment to the minutes which I put in here. I'm presuming that Councillor Carter does not deny the fact that he hadn't visited any of the schools affected by RAC prior to the November meeting, but to give him the benefit of the doubt, I did check when I went to visit the schools with the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of the O2 Trust, whether he had actually visited any of the schools prior to the November meeting, and she confirmed that he hadn't. So I really don't understand what this challenge is about. The minutes as they were stated are accurate. Councillor Carter had not visited any of the schools affected by RAC prior to the 16th of November, and I think there's really been enough committee and council time wasted on this.
I think that may be so, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I think what we have to go with is what was said on the night, so we can't alter or fabricate the wordings to an assumption or everything on the time. So we have to go with the factual of what was said, and that was said, those were the words used. So it wasn't used that he didn't say that he hadn't attended any schools. He said no, he hadn't attended Thameside. So that is what was said, and that's how the minutes are interpreted.
But the minutes are a summary of what was said, and he was asked afterwards, what else had he done, and he hadn't been to visit any of the schools. So as a summary of the meeting, the amendment that I made was factually accurate and in line with what was said on the night.
Okay, I'll refer this for some advice then. Yes, Councillor Abbas.
Madam Chair, thank you. This is a committee meeting, so we are discussing the agenda. So we're not here based on, as you have rightly mentioned, our presumptions. If someone has visited something, so they can individually raise those issues with those. So something which has been discussed or visited by someone out of the committee's jurisdiction. So we are here discussing this particular agenda. And if you look at these ones, it also says members. It does not say individual councillors. So if you want to amend these ones, then you have to amend all the notes, all these agenda items, continuously starting from last May, mentioning every single councillor, what they have said, and every single officer's response. Because this is a comprehensive report. It's not mentioning individual or 100% accuracy of each meetings. So I think this is unnecessary political point scoring, nothing else.
Yes, you're right. We can't go on presumptions. We have to go on what was said, and just need to clarify.
So the minutes are written in the style of cabinet minutes that's used in civil service. As I understand, that was also part of the inspection results that we had as well about the style of the minutes that's used. So we do generally sort of say members were advised or members said this, but we don't specify the specific member, and also we wouldn't be able to go back and rectify every record that we have to actually go back through that, because that would take quite considerable time. But I have also seen the recording as well, and I do understand that that was what was said within the recording itself. In terms of any wider conversations, then we would have to sort of look at that again, but it's based on what was said at the meeting itself.
We need to vote on this anyway. So who is in favour of the suggestion just put there that, you know, we don't change that your requested amendment to the notes?
I'm against this, you know. Sorry, I'm against this, you know, because this is minutes of the meeting. It's not, yeah, so I'm against.
Yes, would you mind raising your hands again for? Thank you.
So this is agreeing the subject to the amendment the committee has agreed tonight. Right, item 3, I've agreed an urgent item to be raised by Councillor Maldoni regarding RAC. Councillor Maldoni, please make your brief update.
Thank you. Just to start off with, can you confirm, Councillor Carter, that you hadn't visited any of the schools affected by RAC prior to the November meeting? I know that you did visit afterwards, but prior to the November meeting, did you visit any of the schools affected by RAC?
Firstly, I want to challenge this item of urgent business because, first of all, the Constitution is clear. It's got to state the meaning for it. 7 working days' notice has got to be given, and to my knowledge, that was not provided. So I want to. What are the reasons for this urgent item of business? I would like to hear them before we go on.
I agreed to a brief update from Councillor Maldoni as she's visited the schools and she wanted to raise an urgent matter.
Madam, sorry, Chair. If it's an update from Councillor Maldoni, then she should be the one who should provide the update.
Councillor Maldoni will provide it shortly. Yes, she is going to.
Will she ask questions first and then she will provide update, or she will provide update and then we can ask question, or someone else will ask question? What kind of update is
You've
this?
got an
If
update
like
and some
someone is providing an
questions,
update and
yes.
start asking questions.
She's going to provide an update and ask some questions.
Yeah, but she has to provide an update, not start questioning some individuals or councillors.
Questions will relate to her update.
I really wish as much concern has been shown about an amendment to the minutes as as much concern was been shown to this issue of RAC and our kids being taught, you know, being taught in tents as it has to an amendment of these minutes. It's absolutely ridiculous. Petty point scoring, bringing it up inappropriately in council. It's ridiculous behaviour. Absolutely. Excuse me.
Can we progress,
I'm not talking
please?
to you. We have chair.
You're interrupting
no,
me.
No. We have a chair who is chairing the meeting. It's not you who is chairing the meeting. So please.
If we progress, Councillor Maldoni, if you could continue, please.
Thank you. Okay, so I did go to visit the schools affected by RAC, and in lieu of an update, have we had the updated briefing note that was promised? Michelle, can you speak to that, or Sarah, actually?
I'm happy to take that one. I haven't yet provided an update in the form of a briefing note, which will come this week. But I can give a bit of an update if you so wish on sort of the next sort of stages. Very brief, but a full briefing note will be provided.
So we were promised an updated briefing note, so this update is really in lieu of that, as it hasn't happened. So some issues were cleared up by the visits to the school. When we heard it at committee, we heard that the temporary accommodation that had been promised was not now happening, and that schools were using marquee tents instead. Now, at this point, it was November, so it was just before it got really cold over the winter, and there were concerns raised by members of the committee about, you know, how children were being taught. Now, having been to see the schools, the head teachers did explain to me that the reason why some of them took the marquees was because the lead-in time was much, much quicker. So it wasn't a case, as the impression was, that the temporary accommodation just wasn't going to happen anymore. It was more that they could get it on site and get it there quickly so that schooling could continue. So that was very reassuring. The visit to St Clair's and the Losberger accommodation is very, very good, and I think we've had feedback from all the councillors who attended to that. I mean, it's as good as it's probably better than the building that they're in, actually. But the head teacher and the COO said to me that they had to actually fight for that because the original plan was like containers. So they went back to the DFE and said that wasn't appropriate. So they've really fought hard to get what they've got on site there. So, however, there's still two schools that are using marquees. Now, these marquees, we've been told that they're not being used to teach students, but however, when I was there on the visit, they clearly were. I mean, I saw a reception class having a PE lesson while I was there in one of them, and in the other, you know, I was told the one with the breakfast club is also housing small group teaching, etc. So the update that Councillor Carter gave at council is actually inaccurate. They are being used for teaching sessions. Now, some, and like I looked at the other arrangements as well. So they are, I mean, you know, they've got glass doors and those bits are double glazed, but most of it is a marquee tent. So obviously it was considerably warmer when I went to visit. So I don't know if I would have liked to have been in there over the winter months, but needs must as the devil drives. So, you know, it's not ideal, but I could understand from the school's point of view why they went with that option. One school, East Tilbury, has now actually resisted the option to have the temporary accommodation. So that wasn't, you know, the fault. They didn't want it taking up their playground space, and there were reasons for that. But they have now decided, and there's some temporary accommodation has been put on the playground, just one unit. And I think this really was necessary because they did say to me that they were doing interventions with children who were excluded or going to be excluded in the corridors, which is obviously not appropriate. And maybe an earlier visit to the schools might have brought this to light and might have sort of hurried that process along a bit. But all the tents are being used. The tent that's being used at Arthur Bugler for the staff members, that one I was less happy with because the generator there was really noisy, and for a staff breakout room, it wouldn't be somewhere that I would go and feel happy, because the generator's really noisy. I mean, it's warm enough in there, but the generator's really noisy. It's not really a very relaxing environment. The other tent that's next to it that's being used for some children's activities is further away from the generator, so you don't have that noise problem. But I did comment at the time that I wouldn't have felt that that was a restful place to go and take your break as a teacher, so that was a bit of a concern for me. I saw the two demountable temporary buildings that have now been installed. Neither of them are being used, but they are sort of ready. They were pretty much ready to be used, so that was good. And it's good that East Tilbury has now got that extra space to be able to do that kind of really personal, private work. For that to be going on in corridors was not appropriate. So I'm glad that they've relented and actually had the demountables put in there. So, and we're obviously heading towards a situation now where all of the works, I will say from a security point of view, it was excellent. All the areas that were affected by RAC were very clearly sectioned off. So there was no chance of any children going into those areas, and, you know, from a safety point of view, all of that was very good. St Clair's had turned their sports hall into 4 classrooms, but they were properly partitioned all the way up to the ceiling, and there wasn't a noise transfer from any of the classrooms, so that was fine. Obviously they lost that space, but they do have had a big marquee where they've got that space back. But again, there is a marquee again that's being used for lessons, albeit PE. But they definitely did need that space because they'd lost their sports hall, both of them. Now, some of the other partitions, so at East Tilbury, the sports hall being divided into 2 classes. The partition didn't go to the top of the building, and there was a considerable amount of noise between the 2 classes. However, when I spoke to the classroom teachers, they were using the opportunity to do team teaching, so they're really flexible. The staff were fantastic. They've been really flexible and they'd really adapted to circumstances, and they were really making the best of what's a difficult situation. So it was good to see that. However, personally, I think that maybe they should have taken the second demountable and actually freed up again the sports hall, because they've got no space there to have assemblies and to do indoor sports. So but, you know, there were reasons why they wanted their playground to stay free from. They didn't want to take up the whole playing area, which I can understand. So I think that's it. I don't think I've forgotten anything. That's the update. But it was really good to be able to go along and ask questions and really get the facts straight. And I think probably in hindsight, Janet Clark, who's the COO, would have been very happy to come to Scrutiny and talk about the changes, and it might have been better to do that, certainly when the next update is provided. It might be good to have Janet Clark to actually come along and tell us what's happening, because it was, I think the alarm of the committee was that, you know, they were promised temporary accommodation, then all of a sudden they weren't getting it, and kids were being taught in tents, you know, going into the cold of winter. So we could have avoided maybe some of the alarm if we had have had a proper update from the people on the ground, as it were. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to ask anything of Sarah?
Yes, and I'd also like Councillor Carter to confirm that he didn't go and visit any of the schools affected by RAC prior to the November meeting, which is the truth.
This is not an urgent item of business, and it has just been used as a platform for a... sorry, Chair, I should have waited for you to give me permission to speak. I do apologise for that. This is not an urgent item. What we have just heard is basically a personal platform to stand and score political points on. We've had RAC update.
I'm sorry, but this is a very important...
I didn't interrupt you.
There's a very important... This is very important. This is how our kids are being educated. You are the portfolio holder. It's an absolute disgrace that you're acting in this way.
Process is important, and I had to do that with the minutes earlier because we can't set a bad precedent at these committees. It's very reflective in the BVI that Scrutiny has not done well. And what is clear, this is an item of urgent business. There is no decision being made today. You can't just call up on a whim and say, I want to talk about this. That is not what this that agenda item is for. It's very, very disappointing. And you visited the schools, I believe, a week ago. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But to give notice for an urgent item, you generally give 7 days. You don't just present it on the day. It's not on, really. We should be treating overview and scrutiny how it is meant to be treated. It is not a personal platform.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. I don't think we should be talking about political scoring at the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee, because we are all here, whatever political party, for the best of the children, and Councillor Muldowney did feel it was an important item, and therefore I agreed to it. And it is an important issue going on with schools. I understand that you might have a different view, but she's brought it to committee and it's been discussed, and we'll move on from here. Are there any further comments relating to the update?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Muldoon. I think this is very positive. At least you went there, you visited there, and the points you noted, like regarding safety and partition. I think that's satisfactory. So obviously this is an ongoing issue. This is not a local issue. This is a national issue. I think the improvements what Councillor Muldooney has mentioned, they are very positive, and it was Councillor Muldooney's update. So I think we need to move on to next item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have an answer from Councillor Carter tomorrow? As portfolio holder, who's here to be scrutinised? I'll ask it under.
Chair,
I
this
think
is an
it's been
update.
exhausted,
This is an
yes.
update,
I'll
not a
ask it under
question
its
answer
report.
It's
session.
been
please.
exhausted. We'll move on. Item 4. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make?
No.
Okay. Item 5, which is the Youth Cabinet update. May I ask the Youth Cabinet representative, I can't see your name, sorry, to provide an update to the committee, please.
Good evening, my name is Syra and I'm Thurrock Youth Cabinet's representative. Unfortunately, our chairperson cannot attend this meeting, so I will be taking over, and I'm here to present you with Youth Cabinet's update. Make Your Mark 2024. On Monday 29th of January, the Make Your Mark 2024 campaign kicked off with the aim of inspiring youth people across the borough to take part in the UK's largest youth consultation. Make Your Mark gives young people aged 11 to 18 the opportunity to vote for the topics they feel are the most important to them locally and across the UK. To kick off the campaign, USB College in Grays was visited by Thurrock's Member of Youth Parliament, who's on hand to explain the importance of voting to the students. See Appendix A. A replica polling station was opened up at the college to give students the opportunity to cast their vote and have a taste of what it will be like to participate in elections once they turn 18. For Make Your Mark, young people were asked to vote on one topic from a list of 10 themes. Thurrock's Member of the Youth Parliament said, "It was a pleasure to visit USB College to raise awareness of the biggest youth consultation in the UK. Hopefully the campaign will inspire more young people to get involved and have a say, so that we can ensure the issues that are affecting our generation the most can be addressed in Parliament." After closing the day on 8th of March, Thurrock submitted its result to the British Youth Council, which will feed into the overall national results. The winning topic will be announced at the end of March and will become one of the Thurrock Youth Cabinet's campaign focuses for the next 2 years. Send Youth Voice. On Wednesday 21st of February 2024, the first Send Youth Voice meeting took place at Grange Waters Outdoor Education Centre with the support of Thurrock Youth Cabinet. The day saw 5 young people take part in the activities to encourage them to find their voice and develop their views and opinions. Activities on the day included bushcraft and team building to break down barriers to communication and to build a rapport as a group. The next meeting date is in July, and the young people are looking forward to coming together as a group to continue this work. One of the young people said, "I have really enjoyed today, getting to know a new group of people and taking part in the activities. I'm looking forward to the next Youth Voice Day. We are still looking for more sign-ups. Please promote the opportunity within your networks and encourage eligible students to sign up. See Appendix B image." Work on the horizon for 2024. At the end of 2023, Thurrock Youth Cabinet voted on the themes they would like to focus on and work towards 2024. The top 3 issues identified as the most important were youth crime and safety, improving well-being, and the environment. An overarching theme this year is to increase SEND voice, supporting and developing a key group of young people that are representative of their peers. Together with Youth Cabinet, they will be involved in the three chosen areas, plus the topic of the Make Your Mark outcome. Over the course of this year, Thurrock Youth Cabinet plan to run projects and activities and campaigns that will bring awareness to these themes, and plan to involve other young people from across the borough in their network. The Young Cabinet believes that these three issues are currently affecting young people the most in Thurrock. If you would like to work in partnership with Thurrock Youth Cabinet on one of these themes, then please contact us at youthcabinet@thurrock.gov.uk. The Youth Cabinet can support in many ways to ensure that you include youth voice in plans and developments that affect them. This may be in the creation and dissemination of surveys in schools and colleges, by scrutinising papers and plans to give their views and opinions, by hosting guest speakers and their monthly meetings, and by attending meetings where possible to represent the Youth Cabinet. Member of Youth Parliament elections. Elections for Thurrock's new Member of Youth Parliament will take place mid-March. Thurrock has 6 MYP candidates. The successful candidate will be announced at the end of March alongside the Make Your Mark national result. We shall update you at the next meeting. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. What a lovely report, and you're doing so much good again, particularly this thing you've got for the SEND group. That's fantastic, isn't it? That's a really good. How's that going? Is it started yet? Have you got much news on that?
Well, we're working on it. We've had the SEND Youth Voice group, and I know that some Youth Cabinet ministers are really passionate about this area, and they're trying to work on it within their own individual schools and work with SEND departments.
That's great. Thank you so much. Any questions? Councillor
Thank you. Thank you very much for your update and for stepping in for the chair to be here this evening. I hope it's not too nerve-wracking, but thanks very much. I was very interested in the Make Your Mark Day and getting people to vote. My son just turned 18 today, so he'll be voting for the first time in the local elections. I was just thinking as I was reading this that, for the adult population, only about 67.3% of those who are eligible actually vote in general elections, and for local elections it's a rather disappointing 35.9%. So any sort of moves to encourage people to vote, I know obviously this isn't an election, but it's for young people to vote on the topics that are important to them and to engage them in politics at an early age, because people say that they're not political, but actually politics affects everybody and every area of life. I think the work that you've done there is absolutely fantastic. Do you know what the turnout was in terms of those who could vote and those who did vote?
Well, the results are to be announced, so I don't know. We can't really announce that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so there we do have the figures, but that will all be officially announced on results night. So if you don't mind, I won't announce that this evening, if that's okay. But yeah, we're pleased with the outcome. So, and yes, the Make Your Mark campaign has really helped, I think, raise awareness of the encouraging young people to vote when they turn 18, and to highlight that you can actually register at 16 to then be able to vote at 18. And that was actually tied into the visit to the USP College, which was really successful, and we thank them a lot for creating that setup for students. It was a really positive experience for them.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
So from my perspective as Thurrock's representative for Youth Cabinet, I thought that it was really hard to try to engage teachers and school leaders to try to encourage them to promote this. It took me a really long time to get my vice principal to send out the tally sheets required for students to vote, and it was a really strong barrier between them supporting us, and they have tried to show our support, but it hasn't been carried out. And especially other schools, they haven't been in contact with us and they have been ignoring us. So I think Thurrock Youth Cabinet would love to see more engagement, and maybe Thurrock Council trying to engage with individual schools across Thurrock as well, to try to engage young individuals as much as possible, so that we are more aware that we can participate in this.
Thank you. That's really useful feedback, and we'll certainly take that away and have a look at how, you know, as a council we can help to remove some of those blockers and make it an easier process next time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for such a positive report, and thank you for your initiatives and projects. Can I request officers if you can liaise with schools, and if they can maybe cooperate with our youth team? Yeah, officers?
Thank you, Chair. I was only just going to ask, obviously you've talked about it being quite difficult to get in with other schools. Have you got any other visits and any of that set up anywhere else yet? Or was that the only one you managed to sort? Thank you.
So in terms of visiting the schools for Make Your Mark has actually ended now. So the voting period has come to an end. That ended on the 8th of March. We visited that particular college because they, we asked if we could go in and they welcomed us. We didn't request to go into any more. In terms of school and college take up an interest, naturally there are always some schools that are more responsive than others. I do have lists. If you're interested, I can forward you the ones that we are looking for engagement from, and I'm still looking for representation from for the youth cabinet. So yeah, I can send those over to the chair if you would like those.
Yeah, it'd be lovely, thanks, because I'm sure anything that that any of us on the committee can do to help, we'd love to. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Lucas, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, please excuse me, colleagues. I'll try not to lose my voice on as I'm talking. I wanted to say a really big well done, and to answer Councillor Abbas's comments about engagement with schools. Absolutely, you know that we can have further conversations with our schools. We've got a number of ways in which we engage with our schools colleagues via our bulletins, via our head teacher briefings, and all of those things are open as opportunities to make sure that as many young people as possible, can engage in this process. Because as Councillor Muldowney said, it's absolutely critical that our young people, feel they want to vote, they want to have their voice heard. It's absolutely critical. So we really must make sure that we're trying to spread that as wide as we possibly can. I guess just one more thing from me, and I'm sure other committee members would endorse this, just to say a really big thank you. You've done an awful lot of work this year. There's been some really good stuff coming through. You'd expect me to say I'm particularly delighted to see some work with SEND. I think that's really important that we're getting that wider voice. But just to say, a really big well done. I'm sure other committee members would endorse that as well. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions or comments from anyone? Okay. Well, thank you again for coming tonight and for your report and for all your good work. Thank you very much. Item 6 is the annual report of the portfolio holder for children's services. May I ask Councillor Johnson to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just add my thanks to your report as well for the Youth Cabinet? I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the evening of the 21st, I think it is. Yeah. The report before you sets out the key highlights during April and December 2023 for children's social care and early help, the undertaken work and the priorities and challenges, in particular the recruitment and retention of foster carers and placement sufficiency. There is also the financial pressure facing the council, and children's social care has continued to contribute to savings but has ensured there is no negative impact on the service. Early help and social care have a continuous development plan whereby the Executive Director continues to chair a monthly development board holding heads of service and assistant director to account, a board which I regularly attend as I believe it drives good practice and therefore good outcomes for our children on a consistent basis. You can see for yourself the key priorities for the service noted on page 20 of the agenda, which I hope you will agree is an impressive list. Something that overarches all the areas of this portfolio is quality assurance, which is the key in maintaining and indeed improving performance, providing services to not only support and measure information, but to enable the service to learn about the service provided to children and young people. Also within this area, I'm pleased to say that Children Looked After and Child Protection conferences are almost always held within timescales and are very well attended by partner agencies. Our multi-agency safeguarding hub, or MASH as we can know it, continues to maintain consistency in its support of and challenge to partners in promoting best outcomes for our children. We have actually seen a small reduction in contact and referrals of children in need and children subject to child protection plan, and we're continuously to work with partners and monitoring this closely. The number of children in care of Thurrock Council is relatively stable. However, I think it is worth reminding ourselves that all officers and members, regardless of their role in this council, are corporate parents to our looked after young children and young people. And the principles of corporate parenting, whereby we must make a collaborative effort to address complex challenges faced by children in care, showing consistent support, equal opportunities, and a holistic approach to their development, and it's a responsibility that I take very, very seriously. Due to Thurrock's geographical location, we do tend to see more than our fair share of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, often fleeing conflict or persecution. However, this has somehow or somewhat helped to develop an expertise in supporting these young people. Via the government-controlled fair distribution scheme, whereby an authority should care for 0.1% of their child population, puts Thurrock's acceptable number at 44. However, this is a number that we are consistently or slightly over, always. Excuse me. Children's Social Care supports 287 children with a disability or an education and healthcare plan, EHCP, across a range of teams, and the focus has been to ensure a think family approach embedded across children with disabilities, offering families the increased use of family networks and ensuring our EHCPs are of the correct quality and do accurately identify and assess the need of that child. Within this portfolio, we also have a youth service and prevention support, known as PASS, who undertake time-limited bespoke work with families who may not require statutory intervention, and once again, there is a strong working relationship with partner agencies. In April 2022, it saw Thurrock become one of 75 authorities eligible to join the Department for Education and the Department of Health and Social Care's grant-funded Start for Life Family Hub programme, and we opened 8 family hubs between April and July 2023, providing services for children between 0 to 18 and their families, or young people up to 25 with SEND. The Youth Justice Service, which was formerly known as the Youth Offending Service, changed its name in January 2024 and was part of the National Youth Justice Board's attempt to emphasise putting of the child first, ensuring we put the child or young person at the heart of our service. As we must remember, all services we show here must put the child first. There is a more detail as how the numbers of youth offenders have altered in the report, with a report of reoffending rates also. Throughout the report, I think it's clear that we as a council see the way forward in this area to be a collaborative effort involving us as corporate parents and all the correct outside agencies. But above all, the families of our most vulnerable children and young people as much as we possibly can, as it's very important that they're involved. So, Chair, thank you for the opportunity to present this report. And before I take any questions, I would like to put on record my sincere thanks to all the staff within Children's Services who go above and beyond in helping our most vulnerable residents and who have coped magnificently through what has been and continues to be a very challenging time. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for your report. I was particularly interested in when you asked the children for their views. How was that actually carried out, and what sort of sample volume did you have?
Well, but do you want to give that over, Janet? Because I know you've got the detail of it, very detailed.
So we work with our children. We've got a participation officer who does quite a lot of direct work with children around their experiences. We have feedback weeks. In terms of children who are looked after, our IROs, our independent reviewing officers, go out. We ask children to contribute towards their LAC reviews, to any reviews around the services that they receive, and we use that to inform the practice and to think about how we can do things differently. So we use different ways of trying to get the views of children and young people. So, for example, one of the ways we might do it is we audit cases regularly as part of our quality assurance framework, and we will, as part of that, we don't just look at the files. We speak to the social worker, we speak to parents, and we speak to young people about their experiences.
Chair, and that's all reported back through the development board as well, which is something which is very important.
Thank you. Yes, there's some interesting points there, aren't there? So that they don't really want people to know that they're in care, and also I was quite surprised to see that some would actually prefer to be in residential rather than in a family. That was quite interesting to me, actually.
Yes, and I think for children, they want to be like any other child. They don't want to stand out as being in care. They don't want all their peers and friends to know necessarily that they're in care. So what we want to do is reproduce a family environment. So they shouldn't be feeling like they're in care. They should just feel like people care about them in the same way, you know, most of our children, our nephews, our nieces, the children we care about feel. And for older children, often where they're really clear about who their parents are, they're very loyal to their parents. They don't necessarily want to live with another family. They're really clear. My parent is there. I know I'm in care for these reasons, but I don't necessarily want to be in a foster placement with another family.
It's interesting and obviously very important to take on their views, isn't it? So thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, thank you for your report. I think it's very positive to note these key priorities. So my question is regarding these children in need and children subject to child protection plan. You have mentioned there has been a reduction in contacts and referrals. And it also says we are like around 24 per 10,000 this year, last year, 2022 to 2023, compared to national average of 53 per 10,000. So is it concerning, or is it genuinely means we are addressing the issues? Can you please explain? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. As I said in the report, it's something we are continuing to monitor closely because, you know, I think if truth be told, we're not 100% sure whether it is a national problem getting better or whether it's something we're doing better. That's why we are looking at it closely. But as far as I know, I haven't had anything reported back yet saying one way or the other. But it is being monitored closely, as I said in my presentation.
So in terms of, you're talking about child in need numbers and the per 10,000 and we're below some areas. We, as Councillor Johnson has said, we're constantly monitoring that to make sure that the right children are receiving the right support. We've got a very well developed early help service. Our attempts are always, where possible, to keep children out of statutory services. We don't want children looked after. We don't want them on child protection plans. So if we can support children at an early stage so they don't have to come into care or be involved in statutory service, that's the way we want to go. We're also eager to make sure that we're getting it right, that our thresholds are right, so we're constantly reviewing those thresholds. We have regular audits, multi-agency audits, so we don't just do them ourselves. We invite partners to be part of those audits to make sure we're getting it right. So we employ a range of efforts to kind of make sure. We've had external reviewers come in and sort of we've given them key lines of inquiries. So have we got the right children on plans? Have we got the right step downs into early help? Are we stepping things up correctly? So we're constantly challenging that to make sure that it's right. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. Just on page 20, just looking at the key priorities for the service, Number 6, increasing the numbers of children looked after, having a timely initial health assessment. I'm sure you thought this was going to come up. Could we just talk through what progress has been made on that, how you think it's gone this year, and then what I anticipate you're going to tell me isn't going particularly well, what the barriers are? Thank you.
I mean, if we stand here and put all the cards on the table, I think we'd all like to say everything should be done immediately at the right time. There are so many barriers, with families, friends of the child themselves. There are mitigating factors in there. It isn't brilliant. It's getting there. It's getting better. As I said, I think we're on that track of putting things in the right order, and it's all about ensuring we are dealing with the right child with the right avenue that we should go down. So there are barriers, and I've mentioned some of them, but other than that, I'm not going to say it's 100%. I think I said in my report that most of them are done on time, but not all of them. Go on.
I think you're probably
Talking about
mixing
something
two
completely
things
different, yeah.
So you're talking about reviews for children, but you're talking about initial health assessments, aren't you?
Yeah.
And initial health assessments, yes, the performance is not, it's not good. And sorry.
Well, no, it isn't good.
It isn't good. We're having regular conversations with our health colleagues. There's been challenge to health, and it's been escalated up through the Executive Director for Children's Social Care, Sheila Murphy, to her equivalent in the health service. We've got a task and finish group, and we're looking at what creative ways we can use to make sure that children are receiving their health assessments. What I would want to assure the committee is that we make sure that children are registered with GPs. If they are ill, that they will be seen. If they need to go to hospital, they will be taken to hospital. There are a number of other barriers, in terms of parents giving permission if their children are accommodated under Section 20. Teenagers refusing to go to their review, to go to their initial health assessment. But the biggest barrier is around capacity within health. And that is also discussed at corporate parenting and at health.
Thank you. Thanks. That's okay. I've got lots of other questions, but I'll let other people come in if they wish. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report, Councillor Johnson. You say that you regularly attend the Development Board, which gives you oversight and allows you to provide appropriate challenge. Can you give the committee an example of the appropriate challenge you've provided?
I think you'll find that the Development Board sits there and the professionals all talk, and there's an agenda which they have to answer to, and there's the ongoing minutes and the ongoing work that's going there. So as a layperson, I sit there and I can challenge anything I want to as being portfolio holder. But obviously, I will only challenge professionals if it's something that I believe within my power to do so. So I don't think I can sit here and say to you, I asked this question, I asked that question. They're questions that come up on a general basis when you're sitting there, listening to a professional giving you their report as to how things are going. And most of my questions will be on those reports where the outcome is a little bit less than what it was the last time we spoke. I'll ask questions on, well, what do you think that is? Are there barriers to it? Is this something that's happening nationally? As we've said on quite a few other things, the whole area has to work on working very, very closely with partner agencies. And that's the biggest problem in all of them, having all the agencies on the same wavelength as we are. I think we're getting there, I really do. I think that the Net Development Board can go on for, I think it's about 2.5 hours sometimes it goes on for, isn't it? And it's very interesting to hear what professionals, why they think something is happening, when then maybe a layperson comes in and puts another point of view. And sometimes the professional takes it on board and goes, okay, yeah, that's something we can look at. But my challenges will always be on those bases of report that I've seen move one way or the other, asking why.
Okay, thank you. And I've just got a sort of comment on the priorities. It's good to see the priorities, and I think, you know, they are the set of priorities for the service are the right ones from sort of my experience of being on the scrutiny committee for quite a few years. But in terms of the report, there's no evaluation of how those have gone over the year, not even in the rest of the report. So I found it was a bit difficult to scrutinise whether anything's been achieved, really. So, I mean, I don't know if you can speak more to, because I was particularly interested in reducing the numbers of care leavers who are not in employment, education or training. So that's obviously a key priority, but has there been any improvement in that? It's not clear from the report unless I've missed, I apologise if I've missed something.
No, I agree with you. Those areas, the key priorities are not specifically broken down into where they have and where they haven't gone the right way around. I know certain people have done, not task and finish, but they've done little areas where they could probably answer on all of those better than me. And I'm sure if the next report maybe could have each one of it explained more. It's obviously going to make it a lot more pages. But which one you said you was particularly interested in? Sorry.
Number 3, reducing the number of carers.
Okay. Well, Councillor Carter said he's actually been in on that group, so he can answer that one for me if that's okay with you, Councillor.
Yes. So this was also one of my priorities. I have sat on this task group with Michelle, who joins us online, the chair of corporate parenting, Councillor Arnold, and before he left us, Dan Jones, and and Kate, of course. The idea of this group was Thurrock had always performed really well with NEAT scores. Over COVID, this dropped and we were below the average, which isn't where we wanted to be for those not in education, employment or training. We then brought it has now increased. The finished group was to identify 20 or so individuals that can be worked on in a very intense basis and to then get them into work, employment. It has worked in a few cases, it hasn't worked in others, is pretty much the update. I couldn't give you an update on a case-by-case basis for obvious reasons, but that work is ongoing.
Just to clarify, do you mean that the numbers are being decreased, not increased? The numbers of NEAT?
Yeah. So it was it was below the average, and it was above the average who were not in education, employment, and training. And now, yep, you're right, it's decreased. So now we're at a better than average level.
The Hearts. Oh, sorry. Did you?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the detailed report. So I'm having also same concerns about the key priorities. We have seen that. Happy to know this all the key priorities. So here, just I would like to know that next time when we are printing this one, if we give the specific numbers along with this target, so that it will be useful, so that we can see that whether we are making progress or not. Because without specific number, nobody will know what's happening. Whether it is in retention, like care leavers, or recruitment, like a specific numbers, if we able to provide, it will be good for us. Thank you.
I'm sure we can do that. I think they are providing corporate parenting, aren't they? Is that they are? Yeah.
Yeah, so we do, on a routine basis in overview and scrutiny, provide performance data, which looks at all of these areas. I'm happy to produce a report if that's what's required by this committee. But yes, in corporate parenting, we do talk about mainly those children who are looked after, care leavers. We talk about the NEAT figures. We talk about how many young people we're in touch with in terms of care leavers, that they're in suitable accommodation. And usually there will be a report, but not on every overview and scrutiny, but usually quarterly there is a report which reports on our performance in all of those areas, all of the areas that we've got there as our areas of focus.
So, would you want them all brought back, or would you just want a report on the ones that you were asked? about.
I think just follow on Councillor Panjala's point. I think Councillor was mentioning, like, in terms of time scale on key priorities, because we already have the numbers on care leavers and on accompanied asylum seekers, but in terms of key priorities, like how we will achieve these things,
Councillor Panjala, is that what you wanted to do? Okay, thank you. Councillor Maldoni.
My other problem with the key priorities is they're not really very well formulated in terms of SMART goals, so that makes it difficult to evaluate them, I would say. Of course, not everything's quantitative. We do want qualitative information as well, but I think for this report, we don't want a whole report with everything in it, but just a summary of are we going in the right direction? Has any improvement been made? Just a very short summary to go with the key priorities. Otherwise, it just feels a bit like a disjointed report. We've got these key priorities over here, and then we've got the rest of the report, and they don't really match up. So from a committee that's trying to scrutinise whether, we've actually made any progress this year, it's quite difficult from the information in that report. Thank you.
So would you say more in tabular format? Is that what you would like, with the sort of key areas and changes in figures so you can read it? What is more accessible to read? Is that?
I suppose a summary of each of the, sorry to interrupt, it's a summary of all the key priorities, what actions have been completed, timeframes,
So,
yeah.
A tabular
Yeah, I
format,
think I'd say so. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, if that's possible, that would be great.
Yes, of course.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Hartstein.
Hello, thank you. Just looking at you, Ask, please, on page 25. Obviously, I know the quota is 0.1% of child population. How many young people did we transfer out this year under that quota? Yes, yeah.
When we hit 44,
That's it,
how many went
yeah.
out? I mean, that is something you're going to have to answer, I'm afraid, because I don't see them on a daily basis. I'm just told when we're at our level and when we're not.
I don't have that exact number of how many children we transferred out. I could probably quite easily tell you how many young people were UASC that were accommodated in the year. But I can look that up, that's quite easy to do.
Yeah, lovely, thank
but
you.
As soon as we get to the 44, then we do transfer out. Unless, if we're at 44 and a young person comes in and they're 17 and a half, for example, then we can't transfer them, so they won't be accepted by another local authority. We'd have to keep them.
Lovely, thank you. And just sort of following on from that, just for my own knowledge, under the scheme, is there a duty to, if we are then looking to move them on, is there a duty to place them or to make inquiries to find out if they have family, if they have friends, if they have links, or do we just move them to wherever there's a vacancy, for want of a better word? Just my knowledge, because I don't know. Thank you.
As far as I'm aware, we make as many, ask as many questions as we can to see if they do have any family around here. I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Janet, but I think the biggest problem with the USC is they maybe not even wanted to tell us the whole truth and nothing but the truth at that time. So it makes it difficult to ascertain. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to ascertain age as well. We're not always told the correct age. So, but yes, I do believe those kind of questions are asked, and if we do find they have family elsewhere, I'm sure logic will say we would try to move them to that part.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, so a full assessment's done when young people present to us, where we will assess their age. We will ask questions about their route into the country. We'll ask them about family members, whether or not there's any family members in this country. We have had young people who have identified somebody who's within their network, and we would always try and place children where possible with family members or within their network. But mostly these young people don't have those connections. But if they do, or if they come to light at some stage that there is somebody they know and care about, we will try and place them with those people, as long as it's safe, obviously, and appropriate to do so.
Thank you. I was just concerned that we were just going to move them somewhere else without actually finding out if there was somewhere, they could go and stay with family. Thank you. I've got some more questions. Is that okay, Chair, or shall I let others speak?
No, I think we're okay for a minute or two if we just keep it.
Yep,
brief as we
thank
can.
you. Could I just go on to the Youth Justice Service? Just a couple of questions around that. Also page 28 and 29. Obviously, I think we sort of alluded to it. The reoffending rates are slightly higher than obviously we would like them to be. What work is being undertaken with that at the moment? Thank you.
I mean, detailed work will be detailed through the specific cases, which obviously we can't talk about, but there is an awful lot of work that goes into trying to find out why someone reoffends. I mean, take completely out of this context, take it out nationally. It's such a difficult thing to ascertain why someone reoffends and why they don't. But the actual internal work that goes on, I'm sure Janet can fill you in a little bit more on it. But yeah, I do know that it is something it's monitored closely. As I've tried to say through this whole report, everything in this portfolio relies on having good partnerships and good agencies to work with, and that's the key to this. Having the police, the probation service or whatever in that group that can help us understand why someone reoffends. If you ask me for a personal opinion on it, Councillor, I think it's almost an impossible thing to answer. Why does someone reoffend and someone else doesn't? We try and do as much as we can to put them back on the straight and narrow, for want of a better phrase. But some people don't want to be perfectly honest. I know there is a lot of work goes on with it, Janet.
So obviously one of the things we try to do is diversion. So you'll see in there that we are part of a turnaround project. So some of it's about early intervention, trying to divert young people off at a very early stage, trying to find diversionary action, thinking about kind of, when young people have offended, diverting them away from the youth justice system. We don't want young people to be, for example, giving custodial sentences. So we try to kind of we have an out-of-court disposal panel. We try to find different ways to manage young people. What I would say in terms of these figures is that there is a bit further down in the report where it does talk about we have very small numbers in Thurrock. And so because of those small numbers, you only need a 2 to reoffend, and it completely skews the figures. It's a bit like with our young people who are receiving custodial sentences. The numbers are so small that it just needs 1 or 2, and it just completely makes it look like the figures have completely changed. So it's quite a difficult thing to quantify. But I think our main focus is about diversion and trying to find out what are the reasons for young people offending. Is there something that we can do differently to kind of, is it that, is it about poverty? Is it about their social group? Is it about, I don't know, is it about their education? There's a whole range of reasons why young people reoffend. And so, it's really more about diversion and doing things differently with young people.
Thank you. Chair, I've got 2 small questions about funding, if that's okay, and then I'm done. Thank you. Just on page 30, just under in the growth box, the third one down, I'm talking about the short breaks. I'm just obviously I've missed something. Short breaks have been around forever. Why is nothing in last year, but it's 650 next year? Have we moved budgets, or has it gone from somewhere to somewhere else? Thank you.
I think it's one that's shrunk when it was the impact of COVID. And obviously the previous year it started to grow, but it wasn't identified as we did the MTFS as a key budget pressure. So it's only as it's emerged this year that we've actually recognised the problem and then sorted this additional investment.
Thank you. Thanks. Last one. On page 31, the savings. Could you tell me, please, what is cross-cutting? As in, I know what cross-cutting is, but what is that? Because that's 390,000 next year. So I was just going to a little bit of an explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's where corporately we've been looking at savings and actually consolidating budgets. So they may be where the training budget for the whole of the directorate to pull together, and obviously ours will go as part of that, and then they are corporately assessed to what's needed back. So there's a corporate consistency approach within that. There is some delays in vacancies that's been applied. So actually we will, monitor the recruitment and look at the agency work as well. They're the key ones.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have we anything further?
Just a quick clarification.
Okay, so Councillor Abbas and
Yeah, that's fine.
okay. So Councillor Maldoni and then
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I mean, you quite rightly highlighted that all of us do have responsibility as corporate parents, and that you take your responsibilities very seriously, as we all do. Can you give an example of how you've done that over the past year?
I think the fact that I attend as many board meetings as I can for the development side of this, and I meet with the executive director and the assistant director on a fortnightly basis, where these you know, the topics are always something that we bring forward. We bring forward at the right time to make sure we're doing the right thing for the right child. A bit of a mouthful, but that's what I always challenging the two of them on. You know, why don't we have a probation officer subject to Thurrock? Why haven't we got this? You know, why haven't we got those? They're small things, Councillor Maldoni, but they're things that, as a layperson, I find very important to have the professional answer to. So I don't think I can sit here and say, you know, I solved this problem, I solved that problem. I didn't, and I'm never. No, I'm part of the policy setting in this. I'm not part of the day-to-day job of, you know, how to get it done. But where I would say I take it responsibility because I challenge the two of them on a regular basis, at least once a fortnight, and ask, you know, in saying to me, well, tell me why this has happened, tell me how this has happened. I have to say, and that's why I thank them, that most of the time, the responses, you know, the reports that I get seem to be ahead of the curve and telling me what's going to come rather than what has happened, which is how I like it. And that's where I find it the most responsible thing to do is, as long as I've got two professionals there telling me if they're ahead of the curve, I believe I will be as well. Sorry.
Yep. No, I would agree with that. Certainly in my meetings with officers, they're very forward-looking, and they're also very, very up for challenge. They welcome challenge, and they actively encourage challenge. So I'd agree with you on that. And just final question is, in terms of the savings, obviously, you know, 20 million in savings have had to be identified, and children's social care, although you know, obviously we haven't had massive savings to make like some of the other areas, because of the vulnerability of the client group has been protected, but there have been some changes and some sort of last minute savings due to other cost savings not turning out to be not deliverable, which is a predictable challenge as we move forward. But can you tell me, in terms of these cost savings, how many redundancies and deleted vacant posts do the cost savings represent?
Someone will have to give you those details, but I, as far as I'm aware, we certainly haven't let any social workers go, apart from, unless they are the jobs that weren't filled. We haven't made any redundancies as such, as far as I'm aware.
So, in terms of our business cases, obviously during the review of the Children's Social Care Operating Model, which was done in 2021, 22, 22, 23, we presented those overview and scrutiny, identified how many jobs were at risk. We did come back and we were really clear about how many jobs that equated to. So there were some jobs that were posts that were deleted, but a lot of what we did was around readjusting and kind of focusing the money where we thought it needed to be, making sure we were getting value for money. So we've not deleted any social work posts. We've not deleted. We're not looking at deleting. Our business case was more predicated on spans of control than reducing social work posts. So if there was a post that we felt we could utilise differently, that's what we've done. So there have been some vacancy deletions. I'm not going to say we haven't deleted posts. We have deleted posts, but they are small numbers, and it is really about what do we need in the service. So, for example, we knew that our aftercare service needed more personal advisors so that we could allocate young people. So we increased our numbers of personal advisors. We looked at our Think Family service that was developed, and we did that. And we had to kind of put some staff in there, because what we did was we decided we weren't going to commission assessments externally, but we would do those assessments internally and train staff to be more expert and to do those things. So it's been a combination of realigning, looking at spans of control, making sure they're not too big. What we don't want to do is have managers having too many people to supervise, because what we know is that if you've got too many people to supervise, then you can't have that horizon scan view. And if social workers have got too many cases, then they can't actually do the work that we want them to do. So our priority has always been about safety and making sure that children are safe and protected. But yes, there are some. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
Yeah, I think sort of when I was trying to add it up for what had been reported over the years, it was somewhere around, maybe it was 13, but that I had to pull that together from a lot of different notes, so I'm not sure if that's correct. Does that sound about right?
Are you talking about social workers, or are you talking about posts?
Posts.
So that would be, yeah, that might be. I wouldn't want to say yes, that's absolutely right, but that would include a number of different kinds of posts. Yes.
Thank you.
So is that Councillor Abbas?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank you. I know it's very difficult, dealing with vulnerable children. It's very difficult and very sensitive. So thank you, the portfolio holder, and thank you to officers. And just for clarification, I think part of this report are also presented under Corporate Parenting Committee. Yeah, because I heard almost similar question and answer. Am I right? Thank you.
If I may, Chair, just to end it, I mean, going for this is child-led. If the child needs it, we've got to do it. There's no question about it. It can't be questioned. But going forward, I do honestly think that the way to, I don't want to say save money, but the way to reduce our outgoing is definitely looking at our partners and ensuring that they are paying their way too. I look at health and things like that. We are getting there, and we are seeing some coming back. But for me, that's the way forward. That's the biggest way we're going to make savings in this department without ensuring that the service remains good.
Thank you, and thank you again for your report.
I suppose what I wanted to say was, we do welcome challenge. It's the only way we learn, is if, people challenge us and ask us those questions, because sometimes people will ask us questions that make us think, do you know what, we haven't thought about that, and maybe we do need to think about that. As Councillor Johnson has said, it is really about putting children at the centre and at the heart of all the decisions we make. We don't always get it right. It's not an exact science, but I think if we keep children at the centre of what we're doing, then by and large we will get it right for most children.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that you do. Thank you again, Councillor Johnson, and you're free to go. There are no recommendations on this item, so we'll move on to item 7, which is childhood obesity in Thurrock. And may I ask Serena to introduce this item, please?
Good evening, everybody. I'm here from Public Health to provide an update on childhood obesity in Thurrock. This report was requested following a meeting at the end of last year where concerns were raised regarding the local rates of childhood obesity. So I'm here to provide an understanding of the local picture regarding overweight and obesity, and an update on the measures in place to address this issue. So as we probably all know, obesity is a complex problem, and there are multiple factors and causes that contribute to it. They can be clustered into themes which include not just what an individual consumes, but the food production, individual psychology, physiology, physical activity, and the physical activity environment. So it's a very multifactorial, difficult and complex task to address. We also know it has significant impacts on health, particularly with regards to diabetes and cardiovascular health, but there are associated mental health risks as well as a wide range of socio and economic impacts. We do have concerning rates of obesity in Thurrock, and tackling it is a priority for the council, as reflected within the health and wellbeing strategy, where there is a goal to work with communities to reduce obesity in Thurrock. As I mentioned, it is a completely complex issue, so we have adopted a whole systems obesity approach to bring together those broad and interlinking factors. We know that single interventions are ineffective in going any way to reduce risk of obesity. We also know that by implementing such an approach, we need a wide collaboration from a range of stakeholders, so that's across health, social care, planning, housing, transport, environment, the whole host. There's not one professional that doesn't have a role to play in addressing obesity. So we lead within public health on the coordination and implementation of the whole systems obesity strategy, and this report will give an update on the programme, but particularly focusing on children and young people. So like I've mentioned, we have a whole systems obesity strategy, and it was developed as the key driver to prevent and reduce obesity in Thurrock. The vision of the strategy is for everyone in Thurrock to achieve and maintain a healthy weight, lead an active life, eat a healthy diet and reach a healthy lifelong expectancy. The strategy is made up of 5 goals. I guess the most pertinent for children and young people is goal A, which is to enable settings, schools and services to contribute to children and young people achieving a healthy weight. The remaining 4 goals are around positive community influences, the food environment and being able to make healthy food choices, the built environment and getting people to be active and supporting that through the environment, as well as service provision, and the identification and management of obesity. So that's more the clinical route. Our strategy is based on a whole systems obesity joint strategic needs assessment, which you may hear referred to as a JSNA. It was published in 2017 by the public health team. And our strategy was initially set to run from 2018 to 2021. However, the ambitions, the vision and the deliverables of them are still very much relevant. So at the moment we are focusing on delivering it as opposed to going back and refreshing it. It's still very much fit for purpose. More recently, we have set up 2 strategic groups to support the delivery of the strategy. We are very much keen on ensuring a system-led approach and bringing together those relevant personnel that I mentioned earlier. Firstly, the all-age Healthy Weight Strategic Partnership drives our strategic transformation and system improvements across the weight management agenda. It includes, but isn't limited to, increasing successful referrals into weight management services, improving workforce and training development, increased use of communications and utilising health intelligence to inform the commissioning that we do through service provision. We're really trying to focus on reducing health inequality, so targeting those individuals that are at the highest risk of experiencing obesity and other related conditions. Secondly, the Child Weight Management Task Force was set up primarily to support the delivery of the Tier 2 Child Weight Management Service, which we have commissioned by a provider called Busybodies. More recently, we've expanded the focus of the group to other operational tasks as well, not limited to increasing uptake of the Healthy Start scheme, the Holiday and Activities Food Programme, which you may know as the HAF, supporting schools to offer healthier options and make better choices for their young people, and supporting the training and development of staff to address healthy weight matters. We are constantly hearing that it's really difficult to have those conversations with not just the children but also their parents. There is a huge stigma associated with child weight management, and that's something that we are really trying to address at the moment. And communications is actually playing a key role in that. We've recently revisited our NCMP child weight measurement programme letters, so the letters that parents receive where after their child has been weighed. So work is underway to do that. With regards to the statistics, the most recent statistics are from the National Child Measurement Programme data from 22-23. So this measures children in reception year and year 6. Our rates of uptake of that programme are very good in Thurrock. It's an opt-out scheme, so parents are informed that their child is about to be weighed, and then they have a period where they can object and withdraw consent for that weighing. 98.1% of children in reception were measured, and 97% of year 6. So that's very good. Across those 2 years, there was about 2,400 young people in each age group that were weighed. However, what we do know is for that small percentage of parents that withdraw their children from being weighed, they are generally the ones that are overweight and obese. Yeah. So in terms of the actual stats, just shy of 25% of children at reception year are recorded as overweight or obese, so yes, 23.9%. This is the worst rate in the east of England, and it is significantly higher than the England rate of 21.3%. We also know that the prevalence of excess weight increases with age, so the older someone gets, the rate just goes up. By year 6, 38.7% of children in Thurrock are recorded as overweight or obese, so that's about 15% increase. It's significantly higher than the regional rates, the second highest in the region, just behind Luton, and is higher than the England rate of 36.6%. In Thurrock, we also know that boys are slightly more overweight or obese than girls. There's about a 3% difference, so 34% for boys and 31% for girls. We also know that obesity doesn't affect ethnic groups equally. There are particular population groups that experience higher rates of overweight and obesity. So for 40% of children recorded as mixed ethnicity, they are overweight or obese, compared to 38% of black ethnic group, 38% for Asian, and 33% for Chinese, and 29% for the white ethnic group. So we know that there are particular ethnic groups that we do need to be targeting and focusing our efforts on. And generally, with those groups, we're going against cultural norms as well, and societal norms, so it does prove to be a real challenge for us. So excess weight does span across all wards in Thurrock. However, we have particular wards with higher rates than others. There's a strong link between obesity and deprivation. So between the wards with the highest deprivation, it's 3 times higher than the ward with the lowest deprivation rate. And this trend is higher than the England rate, which is twice as high. In Thurrock, we know the highest rates for childhood obesity are seen in Tilbury, Chadwell and Ockenden, and the lowest rates are in Corringham. We have been able to map that data for the year 6 rates, and that's within the report. We know that obesity in childhood is linked to many health complications. However, as I have said, the risk significantly increases with age, and the data for adult overweight and obesity shows that just shy of 70% of adults in Thurrock are overweight or obese, and it's higher than the national and regional averages of around 64%. With regards to service provision, we commission an organisation called Busybodies as our Tier 2 child weight management provider. We started our grant arrangement with them in February 22, and we used COVID outbreak management fund monies to deliver this service. Initially, it ran for a year. Prior to this, the delivery was predominantly around prevention, and we only had ad hoc service provision for weight management. So it was a real achievement for us to implement a service in Thurrock for children who were overweight or obese. Disappointingly, the uptake of the service was low in the first year. A whole host of factors played into that. We were focusing on COVID recovery, the stigma that I previously mentioned, and it takes time naturally for services to mobilise and for people to feel confident in accessing them. A lot of our barriers actually lie with parents and them feeling confident enough to attend a service with their child. So we did have a brief pause between the end of that grant and September 23 to take stock of those learnings and to figure out whether we were going to commission, but if so, what would we do differently? And it worked very well. We had a whole host of learnings which we put together in an insight report, and we've implemented them successfully. I won't go through all of them, but we are confident that we're travelling in the right direction now, and our numbers are increasing. So our second grant arrangement commenced in September and it will end at the end of August this year. We have a range of offers within that Busybodies programme. So we have a 12-week live programme. It's all online, so a child is able to log on with their family. So we very much encourage a family approach, and that's not just for the child and the parent, it's involving siblings and other caregivers as appropriate. And they will attend that programme for 12 weeks, but they'll also have dedicated one-to-ones and follow-ups with their advisors, so not all the communication is in a group forum. We also appreciate that that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to be in a group setting, so we've commissioned an online portal of short video content information that families can dip in and out of, so it's not as much of a structured programme because that doesn't work for all families. We've also launched Be Youth, which is our offer for 13 to 18 year olds. It's very much focused on allowing them to design and figure out what works for them, so giving young people a bit more autonomy, and they can identify how what topics are delivered to them in what setting. So more recently our engagement officer has been podcasting with some of these young people, so we're trying to work with them to develop a package of not just weight management offers, it's things about coping with stress, healthy sleep, all of those different things, and we will capture that information to hopefully develop an offer for the teenage years as we move forwards, because they're often overlooked in this population group. We tend to have the child weight management programme, which is under 12s or 12 or under, and then adult provision starts at 18, so we're very much looking at that transition age as well. And as I mentioned, everything is being captured in an insight report because we do appreciate that there's still a lot of learning to be done. We've also launched Henry, which is a health, exercise, nutrition in the really young programme. It's a licensed and evidence-based programme which is offered in many other local authorities throughout the country, and it brings together pregnant women and parents to really help include support for them with regards to breastfeeding, parenting efficacy, lifestyle habits, emotional well-being, nutrition, physical activity, sleep and healthy weight. There's so many components to it. We're delivering it via the family hubs, and there's an 8-week programme called Healthy Families right from the start. There'll be 108 places available across Thurrock, and we are currently really focusing on training our workforce to embed that offer. We have 14 practitioners trained to date, and there's a lot more due to be trained over the coming months. So on the whole, we're really happy with the progress that Busybodies have made so far. Considering we're only 2 years into this programme, they're on par with receiving the same numbers of service users compared to other areas that are a lot more established in terms of how long they've been delivering for. As I've mentioned, the contract will end at the end of August, and the reason for that is because we're embedding the weight management offer within our 0 to 19 Healthy Families contract. That is something that I think will really help support the programme because it will allow greater synergies with school nursing, health visiting, and they are the people that do the child weight measurement. So they're the ones taking the highest and weights, informing parents of the outcomes. So yeah, that will really help. With regards to other work that we are doing, Public Health are leading to encourage the uptake of the Healthy Start scheme. So that's almost a nutritional safety net for under 4-year-olds. It's for pregnant women and those with children under 4 who are in receipt of certain qualifying income-related benefits. The scheme also offers vitamins for pregnancy and women who are breastfeeding, as well as the under 4-year-olds. We started driving awareness of the scheme in April 22, and since then the uptake amongst eligible families has increased from 49% to 71%. That was at the end of January, but when I checked the end of February stats, it's actually gone up to 74%. So we've increased it by 25% over 2 years, which I think is a real achievement, considering these are the families that need the service the most, and it provides them the ability to buy milk, infant formula, healthy fruits and vegetables, and pulses. So given the cost of living crisis, it really is a lifeline to a lot of families, and our anecdotal evidence suggests that the main reason for the low uptake is that those families are not aware of the scheme and the fact that they're eligible for it. However, we know that there are still about 500 families in Thurrock that are eligible for the scheme but just don't know about it. And the charity Sustain have estimated that the value of our unclaimed vouchers in Thurrock is equivalent to a £208,000 cash shortfall. So not only is that money that can support families during a cost of living crisis, it's money that would be going straight into our economy. They would be spending money in our shops, purchasing whatever goods that they needed. In the map, in my report, you'll be able to see, according to your ward, what the uptake rates are, but we are planning to do a lot more targeted promotion within particular wards with low uptake. More recently, we've established a multi-agency communications group that brings together stakeholders from across the sector. We appreciate that all stakeholders play a key role in sharing health promotion messages. We've aligned it to the NHS Better Health campaign, so not necessarily just focusing on weight management, but we're also incorporating mental health, smoking cessation, physical activity, alcohol consumption and mental health as well. It was previously agreed that a health overview and scrutiny committee task and finish group would be stood up to allow members to take local action to address obesity also. However, given the imminent commencement of the elections, we've decided it's best to pause that until after. So that will be revisited post-elections. In terms of what we're planning, our adult weight management services are due to end soon, so we'll be undertaking a deep dive into the scale and prevalence of obesity, which will inform our future commissioning. We really are going to focus on reducing health inequalities and levelling the playing field. We've also recently published a health in all policies approach to place shaping. It's called the HIAP. The guide aims to influence how we can shape places to support and improve health and well-being, acknowledging that where we live, work and socialise plays an important role in our health. That document in particular will assist in driving forward the ambitions of the whole system's obesity strategy and its deliverables by supporting the accessibility and affordability of healthy, sustainable foods, and also creating an environment for physical activity and keeping people active. It does this through a framework of creating change with 5 key areas for action, which includes transport, neighbourhood design, housing, the natural environment and the food systems. With regards to our priorities, we really do want to focus on the 0 to 4, particularly through that Henry offer, so that hopefully in the future we don't have almost kind of a quarter to a fifth of children attending reception year being measured as overweight or obese. That will remain a priority. We still have an issue with the teenage to adult offer, so we're going to use the findings of the Be Youth programme to help bridge that gap essentially. And a key focus around September time will be embedding the child weight management offer within the Healthy Families 0 to 19 contract. These actions are just a snippet really of everything that sits under the whole system's obesity agenda, but I thought they're probably the most useful for this group to be aware of. It's absolutely not exclusive, and it does not detail the comprehensive list, but everything we do is dependent on partnership working and collaboration. We cannot achieve anything in isolation, and the momentum's very good at the moment. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that in-depth report. It certainly does make for a lot of staggering reading, and in you saying that actually the parents of overweight or obese children are unlikely to actually allow their child to be weighed, the figures are likely higher than we've actually got recorded, so that is of concern, and it could just continue to get worse rather than better. So yes, definitely anything we can do to try and stop it and decrease. The vouchers are a brilliant idea, and I see that they are increasing. Buying sort of frozen fruit and frozen vegetables and tinned fruit and vegetables is actually very affordable, and is a lot of people aren't really aware of that. And when I sometimes say to people, because I buy a lot of frozen fruit and veg because I don't get time actually to go out shopping that often, and the fresh stuff's normally gone off by the time I get around to it, and it is a huge cost saving. But when I mention it to people, they're like, what, you buy frozen vegetables? So it's not actually that known out there, so I don't know if that is mentioned to parents as well as an affordable way of getting fruit and vegetables in. And also, are there any vouchers or schemes for fitness, so discounts or passes to fitness clubs or swimming? I know they do some swimming at school, but so they can get exercise as well, so it's not just the nutrition, it's getting out and it's exercising as well. So is that an area that's looked at as well, please?
Physical activity in children and young people is really difficult for us. Historically, we have been reliant on schools to help support that. The pandemic very much changed everything, particularly as schools returned and the focus was on curriculum catch-ups. And to be honest, I don't think that protected time has ever really come back. That's the feedback that I do hear from schools. I think we do have a way to go in how we help support embed physical activity, but at the moment there are no vouchers or offers as far as I'm aware. No.
Because it does cost money to, I mean, joining a private health club is very expensive for a family and probably not affordable for most families. And even the sort of subsidised ones are still expensive to take your child for a swim. I think it can be about £4 or something like that. So if you've got 2 children, again, that might not be, might not be possible. So I think if there is a way of looking at if something can be done on those lines, that would help alongside obviously the food vouchers as well. That would be, I think, worth looking at if possible. Thank you. I'm sure there are lots of questions. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. And I'd like to thank the Chair for highlighting this issue and actually making sure that this came to scrutiny. I think it's really important that it came and that we re-establish a focus. So I can remember when the whole systems approach to obesity came to scrutiny, and it was, it was an excellent piece of work, but that was back in 2018. So I'm guessing that any progress that was made was then lost during COVID. Or what? Because I mean that only ran up to 2021. So I don't know what your opinion of whether that needs a refresh or if it's still largely relevant. And so what happened prior to that? Were we making progress? And then
prior to the strategy, Thurrock did have a healthy weight strategy. However, we very much appreciated that we have to address it as a whole system and not just focus on weight, and primarily it was around service provision and intervention. The strategy was still delivered throughout the pandemic. It's still very much ongoing, but we have just decided that the ambitions, the goals, the deliverables are still very much fit for purpose. So we're just operating under the strategy. The only thing out of date is the year assigned to it.
Yeah, so nothing's really changed. I think everybody that I know put on weight during lockdown, so myself definitely included in that, and the whole of my family actually. So I think that's probably true across the board. I had one friend who lost weight, but there was only one, so it was an exception. So it's good. It's great that you've driven up people actually engaging with the programme. That's really good work. What I didn't see in there is the impact, but maybe that's too early to say, or have you got figures for the previous year?
I mean, it's really hard to assign figures to measure impact other than looking at prevalence of obesity data, and even those, they're really hard to measure. We have obviously the numbers of people that are accessing services, and generally we are always at capacity, and that's very much aligned to our budget allocation. But each work stream within the strategy has its own deliverables, so it could be something for like the Healthy Start scheme that sits under there. So that has its own targets and we monitor that. But with regards to actually looking at obesity related numbers, we would always look at prevalence. For children, it's a bit easier to monitor because it's a more standardised approach via the National Child Measurement Programme. However, with regards to adult data, it's predominantly self-reported because most people don't go to their GP regularly and have a weight taken unless you probably have some sort of long-term condition or are under medication. So it is very difficult to measure in terms of an overarching number to quantify.
And my second question was about the Healthy Start. So obviously it's great that uptake has gone from 49% to now 74%. As of the end of February 2024, but these 500, maybe it's not 537 now, but over 500 families eligible but not currently accessing the scheme. Do we know who these families are? Right, okay. So, because I was going to say, can't we just write to them and say you're eligible for this scheme?
We know roughly where in Thurrock they are based on the map that's in the report. I think it's on page 7. However, we don't have access to people's kind of socio-economic status, and it's generally based on what income related benefits they receive, but we're not given identifiable information. It's a scheme that's run by the NHS, NHS BSA. So no, unfortunately we can't target them. However, our communications team have got some really good ideas about how we can try and hone in on them via social media. So it's about looking at the people with the right demographics who follow the right sort of groups. So particularly for this 0 to 4 age group, it would be people that follow local baby classes and those types of things. So that's the approach that we will take for now, and I'm hoping now that we've taken the kind of low-hanging fruit by doing the general promotion, we can start to do that more targeted work.
So you've identified certain, maybe people would be part of a certain Facebook group or whatever, and then you'll go and advertise on those groups. Oh right, okay, yeah, that's a good strategy.
Yeah, the power of social marketing and social media has been really handy for this. But you know, not to undermine the role that health professionals have played in this, health visiting, school nursing, midwives, they've all been instrumental in driving that uptake as well, even right down to our libraries actually, because a big barrier for people was the fact that you need the internet to sign up to most services. Health literacy, digital literacy has also been an issue, so we've trained up the majority of our library staff as well to promote the service and support the sign-ups as well. So many people have played a role in driving this uptake. I can't take credit for it.
Thank you. What was my other question? So I think you may have answered this. So at the moment you haven't really got a clear picture of the impact on obesity, because it sounds like the programme only really launched last year and there was limited uptake. So, but this year's data presumably will, once you get that will show the impact. I think we'd certainly like you to come back and tell us about that in the future, if you would.
Yeah, of course. Are you referring to the Tier 2 Child Weight Management Service, the busybodies? Yeah. So, yeah, we are very much in the second year of that. But whatever findings we have from that will be built into the 0 to 19 contract when it's embedded within the Healthy Families Service. And if anything, we just expect to build on it because it will be interlinked with school nursing, health visiting, and they are the people that are taking those child weight measurements.
Oh, sorry, I remembered my question. So the funding for this, where does it come from?
So at the moment, it's COVID outbreak funding that we're still using, because obviously schools were disrupted and our weight management offer was disrupted. However, longer term it will be funded via the public health grant.
So that funding is secure for the work to continue into the future, because obviously there's some way to go. Yeah.
Do you want to answer?
So it's, as Serena said, it will be part of our 0 to 19 contract, and the contract is due to start the 1st of September for 3 years plus 2. So it will be secured for that length of time. Thank you.
One quick question, moving on from funding. The surplus in undertaken, the vouchers that haven't been uptaken, you said was about £280,000. What's actually happened to that money? Is that just in storage, is it? Or?
It's not council money, it's NHS money. I don't know what they do with it, unfortunately. But yeah, our uptake's quite good compared to other areas in England, so I'm guessing they have a rather large reserve, but I don't know what they do with it.
So is that a reserve that will be kept for Thurrock or not necessarily?
I don't know. I don't know, actually. I can find out, but I wouldn't like to hazard a guess.
To know. Thank you. There were quite a few people wanting questions. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Serena, for the detailed report. So just I'm having a concerns about that one, this one, obesity and overweight. If you see all categories from year reception to year 6 and adult, we are beating the national average in each categories. So we have like strategies, 5 strategies in place, and work is in progress. So do we have any alternative plans, if these plans are whether going to work effectively or not in future, whether we're going to bring down obesity and overweight, and what other boroughs are practicing? How do we have any comparison so that we can able to do something different which will going to affect to the Thurrock residents?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. So our strategy is not rigid. It's very much a dynamic strategy that evolves, and a lot of the things that we are doing at the moment weren't within the strategy when it was first developed. So we are progressing. We're advancing. I sit within a regional healthy weight leads group, and we are constantly talking about what each area is doing, sharing ideas of best practice, suggested improvements. So there is a lot of collaboration. We also meet as a country as well. So the weight management leads from across the country get together. I guess it is just dynamic, and we do evolve and progress as we need to. Unfortunately, it's not something that can, we can't just commission our way out of it. We're challenging cultural norms, families' personal preferences, time, food choices. It is challenging, but yeah, we are trying.
I have one more. So I know we have a challenges. So are you expecting any support from the schools so that we can able to work effectively?
Absolutely. So we have a child weight management task force, and we do have 2 schools in particular that attend religiously and are very keen and proactive, and one of them is Kennington's. So Joe, the head teacher from there, has so many examples of good, more excellent practice. However, our challenge at the moment is those schools that aren't necessarily engaged in the agenda. The academisation of schools is a big barrier. We don't really have much influence over them. More recently, it's been brought to my attention that certain secondary schools are not offering a full lunch break. They're having one short break in the morning and another short break in the afternoon. Yeah, lots of nods. Yeah, it's not conducive to healthy eating. So kids are just kind of running into the canteen, grabbing a sausage roll and going outside. And yeah, they might kick a ball around, but they've not had a healthy lunch. And not only is that physically damaging. It can't be good for their mental well-being either and their concentration. So we are trying to work with schools to influence not only what they offer on their menu, but how they instill healthier behaviours. However, the academy setup is proving very difficult, and I do work very closely with Michelle on this and her team. So we've also recently spoken about launching a super zones type project, so similar to what the London authorities have implemented by making the area around a school healthier as well, so trying to limit fast food takeaways, encouraging walking to school. So it's not necessarily about what's going on in the school as much as we do need to influence that, and we try. It's about creating a healthy environment outside of it as well.
I have one more thing. I can understand that one, but we can still do something better. We have like a total in our borough 39 primary schools and 13 secondary schools. So if we reach each and every school, and we need to bring the awareness through the schools, so that when we bring the awareness, then it will be helpful. And I know after COVID-19, 2019, it impacted on each and every household. Health-wise, kids are not well. Most of the time sick. If you see the attendance also is not before COVID and after COVID, we can see the difference. So we need a lot of like a commitment and a little bit seriousness so that we can bring maximum schools on board. It will help us, and it will easy for your job also. It will be easy, because working alone, as I said, you need collaborative work. Then only we can able to bring the change. So that is only my recommendation. Thank you.
I'll just ask something about the going on from the school food. When I went to a youth cabinet meeting, we talked about school food and obesity and things, and the youngsters, they mentioned that the healthy foods were more expensive to buy, and so it was more affordable to buy a slice of pizza or something. And I don't know if any intervention can be done on that to sort of bring the pricing more into at least the same, or even make it less expensive than a slice of pizza. That might be something, if you're able to have some influence on that.
It was one question about the going back to the families that are not uptaking the vouchers. What about the food banks? I'm probably sure you do, but is that a place where people get notified and can they access the computers? And probably going on your point, I do have a son that goes to school where has 2 half-hour breaks. And he says if you get in a queue for food, you won't even get food in half an hour. So it has to be something that's cooked and ready. So absolutely, that. And again, the cost is crazy. So to be fair, he doesn't actually eat. I'd give him a packed lunch, and he'll eat that packed lunch over the 2 half hours. So absolutely, that is a massive point. And also picking up on something you said, Lizzie, about affordability for the activities for children. They are colossal at the moment. I think taking my child to Flip Out is £18 for an hour. So anybody with a couple of children, trying to entertain them in a week's summer holiday or 6 weeks summer holiday, it is out of the question, to be honest. And I think I was looking at all the alternatives. I mean, we're doing in our school where I'm a governor, we're doing a swimming school, a pop-up swimming pool, which is amazing, and I've just signed him up for volleyball lessons, but even that's £10 an hour, and that's subsidised in the school. So, it is really, the cost of children's extracurriculums are really getting hit by this cost of living crisis, which is a shame because parents just can't afford it, and that's going to just fall by the wayside. And sometimes chicken nuggets is a cheaper alternative than cooking a healthy roast dinner or a healthy fresh dinner, and that's the problem where we're getting at the moment. So I don't know how we can do it. Please tell me. But yeah, so that was just my points about food bank. Anyway, I'm diverting off, so thank you.
Who have we got? Oh, who was first? Sorry.
I just wanted to reinforce that point. When my son was at school, he had like a 25-minute break, and that went down to a 20. He had a 25-minute lunch break, but then during COVID, that went down to 20 minutes because of all the arrangements that they had to do, and then had another break, and then they finished at 2:30. And I was like, well, when I went to school, we had a whole hour So you could eat, you could go and get your meal, and then you had plenty of time to play in the playground. It's just, I don't understand why there's been this move to concertina, the school day, and especially at younger ages, there's like kids, you know, need a proper break and they need a proper time to actually eat their lunch. So I'm sure that is a contributing factor to what we're seeing. And I just really wanted to reinforce that if we can make an impact on that. I don't understand the reasons why schools have moved in that direction. I understand why the breaks got shorter over COVID, because they had to, you know, have a lot of groups coming out at different times, but even before that it was only 25 minutes for lunch. It's like, how have you got enough time to eat properly and enjoy your food and really register that you're full, and you don't need to eat any more? It's really unhelpful, I think.
Thank you for your report. I know there have been a lot of questions. You know, just a quick, you know, obviously our concern is on this very high rate, like we are above average rate. You know, this is very concerning. And the second point is, if we know there are 537 families, so why are we not reaching out to those families? I think just sending them a letter, if we already know the numbers, I think then reaching out to these families would be very helpful, you know.
I'm assuming that's with regards to Healthy Start. We're not provided with their information, so we can't target them. However, we are planning to try and do some social marketing to at least get it on their radar.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, so that's great. Thank you very much for the report, and we'll move to the recommendations. We've got recommendation 1.1. Members are asked to note the current rates and distribution of childhood obesity in Thurrock and actions taken in support of addressing this issue. Noted?
Noted.
Yeah. And 1.2, members are asked to raise awareness of local opportunities to support the whole system's obesity strategy and its associated deliverables. Is this recommendation?
We cannot say on this, you know, because in report it says, like, you know, we cannot do this during election period. And the second thing is, like, how do you want us to support this? Is there any material do you want us to kind of share with our residents, or is it something brochures, or is it online campaign? Because obviously there's no clarity, you know, asking us to do something when there is no material available, and then there is a clear restriction in report, like, you know, this report is on hold until, you know, elections are done on 2nd of May. So can you please clarify this?
Yeah, of course. So with regards to the pre-election period, that is for the members group to convene. So the members that want to be taken on the approach to help address obesity and support a healthy weight in Thurrock, that group will be established post-elections. And with regards to actions, I guess it's helping support some of the issues that I've raised within my report, particularly about looking at the maps and figuring out what's going on in your ward and how you might be able to, you know, raise awareness of the services that I've mentioned, mention Healthy Start in conversations with your residents, particularly those that you may know are in receipt of benefits or are kind of struggling financially. So if people come to you with concerns regarding the cost of living crisis, it might be something that you can mention. So yeah, it's more about signposting and just letting people know where to find that information.
Can we get some links or something? You know, I don't think so from all this report, if we can pick point something, because we are not expert in these things. So if we can get some links or maybe some leaflet or some brochure, that would be very, very helpful. And can I chair, then we can amend these amendments, you know, subject to these kind of extra information?
I think the recommendation is a broad thing, that we are just recommending it and talking to people about it informally. We don't have to have like a formal arrangement with residents. It's just sort of highlighting it. So I think I'm okay with the way it's worded, unless anyone else.
I'm okay with the way it's worded. I do know that all members receive details of the HAF programme so that they can raise that with so I hope everybody's doing that. And also I certainly knew about Healthy Start because I attended the opening of the family hubs, and I spoke to a number of people there that were promoting that. It's really good to see that happening. So I think, you know, members are getting this information. Maybe they haven't been really registered it. I don't know.
Is that one agreed then? Are we okay? Yeah. Well, thank you very much again for your report and work, and let's hope that in a year's time we've got some figures to start showing. So that'll be good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 8, which is presentation of the designated school grant. May I ask David to introduce this report, please?
Hi, so the intention is to go through a short presentation just on the Dedicated Schools Grant to give you some context of the Dedicated Schools Grant, but also link it to the DSG deficit, specifically around the high needs block, and also part of the Delivering Better programme, value programme that the authority's been part of for the last 12 months. The slide that's on the screen now just provide some context to the background of the Dedicated Schools Grant. So it came in force in about 2006. Since then, it has certainly grown and obviously incorporates a lot of specific funding blocks now that have separate regulations and separate funding allocations. So you'll see in the next slide where we've got a big DSG grant. Each one of those blocks is very much ring-fenced to themselves and very much has its own regulations about what we can and cannot do. So the next slide shows the position for 2023-24, so the current year. And just to provide some context, you'll see that the DSG grant for Thurrock is about £209.4 million. So obviously that is a significant sum, but the majority of it, 158 million of it, goes to schools direct from the Department for Education because they're academies. The remainder is specifically for us is focused around the high needs block and early years. You will see that the current year we are projecting an underspend of about £900,000. Now that is fortuitous, that is being caused by delays in setting up the new resource bases that have just been delayed, so they will be coming online, that give us a one-off surplus. What that means is that the overall deficit of the DSG that was 4 million in 2018 should now move into a surplus position by the end of this financial year. So around about a 400 to 500,000 pound surplus. Now that is totally against the trend. That's what's happening nationally, because there's some big deficits out there. Now it's important that we keep that message and that delivery trying to maintain that, because in 2 years' time the deficit of the DSG reverts back to local authorities. So it will be the local authorities responsible for that. Now, whether that still happens because it's been changed again and put back, but I think at some point they're trying to create the linkage with the SEND SEM AP green paper and to get the accountability local. So we have booked the trend, and certainly we have and are recognised for the good progress we've made. In next financial year, where we've already received the budget, so we did have a significant increase in grant, but primarily because of the early years. So we've got the expansion of the early years offer that starts for some elements in April, but predominantly in September. And that is a big unknown, because obviously we're working on ASFA figures. However, we've passported as much as we could to early years providers. The high needs block continues to present pressures because of the continued increase in EHCPs and obviously the cost of specialist provision. Moving on to, sorry, we'll go 2 slides forward. I've realised I'm pressing the button and it's not moving. Next slide on, please. Yeah, so as Within Thurrock, and part of the long-term approach that's been, I think, recognised by the DFAE as good practice, we have developed, certainly over the last 5 years, the local offer and increasing the local offer to build more Thurrock provision, the resource provision, I suppose Treetop's free school opening, and first, certainly continuing to expand the resource provision attached to mainstream schools. What that does is provide better outcomes for the young people, but also improve value for money for ourselves. So there is a win-win, and certainly that approach, neighbouring authorities will say they've come to it too late, and therefore trying to play catch-up, but we've got ahead of the curve, and I think it is contributing to the success of the reduction of our deficit. The next slide. So as part, because we had a deficit, Thurrock has been part of the Delivering Better Value in SEND programme. So we were one of 55 local authorities. We were in the last tranche of the programme because our deficit was a lot lower than other local authorities. What we've been engaged in the last 12 months is supplying data that's allowed external scrutiny of our plans to look at our future year projections to see, are we doing enough that can reduce that deficit to the minimum it can be? And also, if they give us a grant, which we've had success in this application, what can we invest in that would reduce that deficit further? So we've worked with the DVV programme. This was approved at the board on the 29th of February. I think I was led to believe that we would got a lot more scrutiny, and I think whether that just represents the robustness of our plans, that we didn't get many questions from that, and they were happy with the proposals that we developed. And it is about maintaining or increasing the mainstream capacity. So looking at what we can do, how we can upskill the staff in mainstream schools to actually hold on to and support the needs of children with SEND support and with EHCPs. And through that, increasing the outreach offer to again support schools to hold on to children in the best setting that meets the needs of the child. The other two bits of the grant, the last two columns, are about reviewing what we're currently doing with regard to outreach. So where we've got a finite pot of money, let's review everything and see where we can consolidate the new practice into our existing budgets. And we've been asked to reduce or consider reviewing the high in-miss places. This is out of borough cost of placements. Ours would deem to be higher than other local authorities. But when me and Michelle were at Birmingham, they did this overarching slide, we had the fewest children out of borough because of our policy. So therefore our costs would be higher because these are the high needs children that we can't accommodate within Thurrock. But we've said we will do a review to make sure we are securing value for money on that. On the next slide, you can see this DBV programme, we were part of Wave 8. These are the emerging trends that have came out from the Wave 8. Sorry, not from Wave 8, from the earlier waves on the programme. And they are consistent with what we built into our grant application. And obviously it is about increasing the ability of mainstream schools to provide day-to-day support for children with SEND. And if you can do that, you can then obviously, you need to increase the confidence of parents that that is the right setting that best meets the needs of their children. So again, we are working with the Parent Carer Forum regarding the implementation of this grant, and also looking at how we can build up the needs of schools. We're doing an approach with schools using the training hub, and also we are seeking views from school of what their training needs is. But that's a catch-22. Sometimes you don't know what you need until it's delivered. So actually we are working with the training school, the teaching school, sorry, about delivering a suite of programmes. The next slide, and obviously these will get circulated too, because that's very hard to screen on that screen. But yes. But ultimately what it's...
Chair, this has been very helpful, if you would have received this presentation, beforehand, because I'm struggling to really read from there,
Yeah, apologies. What this slide shows, or is trying to show, is that we will still increase our EHCPs, because that's a national trend, but we're trying to reduce what the current percentage uplift is now to a more manageable amount. What this demonstrates is with the investment of the £1 million over the 5-year period it's expecting the cost may reduce by 10 million. So that's the investment. Obviously, it's all if, buts and maybes, and that's what we think we've got a meeting in a couple of weeks with the DFE on the implementation and what measurables they will want from that grant. But ultimately, it is about a year-on-year deficit of around about 3 million, and that is something that we're going to have to just take year on year, what's moving, what can we change. And also, I think a lot of this depends upon increasing government funding for the high needs block with children. So I think there's a two approach. Yes, we've got to do everything we can, demonstrate value for money, and that's what we have been doing with conversations we've had with the DFE for the last 5 years, and that's demonstrated through our deficit reduction. Some of these projections were like 70 million deficit after 5 years. Well, actually, we said we could never present that. We couldn't own that because of the trends that we've had currently in managing our deficit. So we are very happy with these figures, appreciating that it's a year-on-year approach linked to funding and linked to what demand is in the system and how we can respond to that. So that's a short overview. Apologies for not the presentation. You're not having sight of that earlier. It will get circulated, but happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. So there's obviously a lot of figures there as well. But one sort of thing I have to ask is that obviously children develop and their needs change. So they'll have an assessment, and it might be that a school is found for them that's appropriate. But then in a year or two, they might slightly change or the needs change. Do they then move schools? And obviously there must be cost implications with that. How often does that sort of occur?
So there is, I'll answer first, Michelle. There's an annual assessment of every education, health and care plan. So obviously that's an annual review of is the current plan, current provision meet the needs of the child. We've identified through the programme, and we're in a meeting today looking at the increases in EHCP seems to be a transition point. So it's looking at what more can we do with transition points to upskill the new school, where so like, you know, if we're moving from primary to secondary, it's a totally different environment. We all know that with children, but actually what skills can we provide the secondary school, but also what can we do to the child in that 12-month period leading up to the transition that better equips them. So that's the key that's focused to come out of that. What more can we do to support the child, but also to make sure the school is upskilled to meet the needs of that child. But it would be picked up through an annual review.
Thank you. Questions from members?
Yeah, so I couldn't read any of that, even with my glasses on. But what I got from my notes was that you've managed to move from an overall overspend to a surplus because of the delays in setting up the new resource bases in schools. So that doesn't mean that we're going to not have resource bases, but just that delay has saved those many months of money, or however long it was. Is that correct? I've got that right?
Yeah, so that's what's contributed to the surplus this year. That delay, some of it to do with RAC, because the schools weren't able to open the provision at when they were. So we know we've got some that two, for example, we were expecting to open in September last year. One is open in April and one is open in September. But that's got a one-off saving that is contributing to the in-year position this year. The reduction of the deficit from 4 million, you're right, to a surplus now, over probably that 5-year period, I think represents the good partnership approach that we've got within Thurrock. So certainly the open and transparent nature that we've got with the Schools Forum, getting schools to work with us, reviewing costs, doing a full review of all the costs that we were providing to resource bases and special schools a few years back, and then just doing inflationary increases since then. So it's very much, for me, I think a good strength is our collaborative approach. And I think it's got to be that, especially with all majority of schools as academies. It's got to be that partnership approach, but actually working with schools and actually them wanting to find a solution as well.
So, I mean, you should be congratulated for that. I know when I went to an LGA senior leads training, everybody was very jealous that we had such a small deficit on the DSG. So the moving to get rid of that 4 million over 5 years is we've got a surplus this year because of that one-off cost saving. But next year sorry, I couldn't see any of the figures. But next year we're expecting there to be
So based
a
on,
deficit
at the
again.
time we submitted the DBV application, we were forecasting a 3 million deficit next year. But that was based on a £500,000 deficit carried forward to this year. So already, if we have, say, £1 million or £500,000 to £1 million surplus, that 3 million is already down to 2. And that 3 is the worst case scenario. So when we've had to set the DSG budget for next year, we've got to set a balanced budget, of course, but we've identified with the forum these 4 or 5 areas of risk that we will continue to monitor and try to develop implementation strategies. And if the grant is more successful sooner, that would lead to efficiencies as well.
Sorry, I just need to interrupt quickly. It's 9:15 now, so we do need to look at extending the duration of the meeting. So I'd like to move a motion without notice to suspend Council Procedural 11.1 to allow the meeting to continue beyond the 2.5-hour time limit. Is that agreed? Everyone agreed? And it might be an idea after this item to maybe take 5 minutes, because we've still got quite a few item numbers to go through. If everyone's in agreement with that, just take a 5 minute.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
you. Okay, but we are. So when does the deficit or surplus or break even revert back to local authority? 2026. So by 20. Yeah, to the best of your knowledge at the moment, yeah. There's always that caveat, isn't there? Yeah, fair enough. So by then, are you predicting that we will be break even or?
I think we would have to take that year by year, because I think there's too many variables. So this grant has got to make an impact to reduce the future number of EHCPs. If it doesn't work, our numbers would continue to increase and the cost. And the local offer has got to continue to respond to the needs of children in Thurrock. And if that does, it means that we are offering the best placement in Thurrock, but also the best value for money, which would stop the high-end expensive in places. However, we've got to acknowledge that we probably always will have 30 children that require a provision, because that's more cost-effective to do it out of Thurrock than have our own provision. But it is constantly evolving that resource special schools to meet the identified needs of the children in Thurrock.
And from the viewpoint of schools, because I know as a school governor and sort of conversations that I've had with head teachers, that the SEND part of the money that they get doesn't cover the hours that they have to pay for. So that's an implication for school budgets, that they have to fund that out of their cost, their budgets basically. So if a student, for example, needs 30 hours, then they'll only be funded for 25. So they never get the full amount of hours that they have to be funded for. Is there anything on the horizon that corrects that? Because I mean, surely that attrition of school budgets can't continue forever.
So with school budgets, you've got obviously it is a structured formula based on the characteristics of children in that school. So there is a lot of emphasis on deprivation, and obviously there's a lot of correlation between deprivation and SEN. So if a school has a lot of SEN children, you would expect to get more deprivation, and therefore their notional SEN budget is higher. So it is identified when we publish the budgets, their notional SEN funding, and that's the expected budget from a Thurrock point of view that they are required to contribute towards children. So you're right, it's the first 6,000 of every education, health and care plan. Now that figure's never been reviewed since year dot, so it is subject to review as we move forward. I think it's part of the SEND AP Green Paper. Also, as we move to a national funding formula funded by the DFE, that will then be a national approach to what a school's notional SEN budget is. So therefore, every school nationally will be using the same formula to determine their notional SEN budget. The risk with all of this is this year, Thurrock Schools' budget increased not as much as what they have in previous years. So therefore, if they are feeling the pressure, does that lead to more requests? And that's where, as a local authority, we need to make sure we're consistent with who receives an EHCP plan and also ending them if they've made the progress that they don't need it.
Thank you.
I think Councillor Carter, did you want to come in on that one?
Yes, just briefly, I wanted to, for those who don't know, David has come a very, very long way to be here. And I just wanted to say a big thank you for doing this, and I meet you every couple of months, and it really is appreciated. He is one of the unsung heroes of the educational team, and well, just thank you for that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members? Okay. So there aren't any recommendations from this item, so we'll take a break and then resume. Thank you very much, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
This side, because she's unable to see what is going on the screen.
Got more stuff going on?
I think she's the one who's going to present the next report. Michelle?
No, I think it's Sarah.
Sarah.
Sarah, yeah, that's fine. Okay, item 7. Oh, no, it's item 7, sorry. Item 9, home to school. No, don't. It's so good, we want to repeat it all again. Item 9, home to school travel and transport policy. May I ask Sarah Williams to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the report before you is for, as you said, the homeschool travel and transport policy. This one has been updated and actually replaces the 2021 policy, which was the last time it was reviewed and updated in Thurrock. And this is based on statutory guidance that the DfE released in June 2023. And really it's to ensure that our policy at Thurrock matches the statutory guidance. So we've got some proposed changes that are coming within the policies, and in fact what we're looking to do is have a separate mainstream policy and a separate SEND policy, so it makes it easier and clearer for parents around eligibility. We're also looking to introduce a travel assistance budget, so that's something formal within the policy. We're also looking, because the statutory guidance says that children, we should be looking at, as part of the eligibility, the nearest school to the child's home address. And the policy at the moment actually states that, families should be, applying for their 3 nearest if they're primary or 6 nearest if they're secondary, and then remain on the waiting list. So that's going to be, we're proposing to remove that. What that also means is that, where children might be offered places that is, further away from their home address because it's an unplaced offer, that's the nearest that we can find, availability, that they wouldn't then be expected to move. So they would stay at that school. We would continue to pay their travel costs if they're eligible under the criteria until they finish the phase of education that they're in, so whether that's primary or secondary. We use a data mapping system, so we have a system online that parents can access. They can use that to look and see which is their nearest school. So that's all published in the policy, and actually we talk to families about that when we meet with them around school admissions. So at the end of the year, when we talk to them about applying for school places, that's something that we do talk to them about, and that's also within the school admissions booklet, so there's a section on home to school transport there. We did, because we're changing the policy, we undertook a consultation, which we're required to do, statutory 28-day consultation. That started on the 29th of November and ran until the 19th of January. So although it was close to sort of, term Christmas break, we allowed that to run on into the new year, and the consultation responses you will find at appendixes 1A and 1B. There was a good response. There was a total of 124 responses across both of the consultations. Respondents felt there should be an easy read policy, which is why we're looking to separate those. And really to sort of make it as easy and clear as possible for those parents. The council, we look at promoting sustainable travel, so we're looking at what travel arrangements to make. Part of the bringing in a travel assistance budget is to give families another option where that budget is paid up front. Those families can choose how they want to spend it. For some families, they want to be able to decide how their children get to school. It's funded by the authority, so we're still providing that for free. Particularly sometimes with SEND children, you know, some families want to be able to take them themselves. So, you know, we can, or they can arrange for somebody else or their own individual transport. So that travel assistance budget just sort of helps families to be supported in that. In terms of how we calculate that, that's done on a 45p per mile times 4 trips. So we do that over 4 journeys, which is the 45p is the HMRC rate. So, you know, we're sort of trying to keep in line with that and sort of give those families, you know, that funding to do those trips to school. Just thinking about some of the consultation responses, you know, families did want that option when we asked about a travel assistance budget. They said that they felt that should be included. So that's why those things are being changed and going into the policy that will be published probably towards the end of this month, ready before families start to make their applications for transport. In addition to that, we are also looking to introduce a contribution towards post-16 transport. You know, that's for us not a statutory duty. From the ages of 5 to 16, we do have that duty to provide free travel assistance, but not at post-16. And in fact, you know, we have discretionary power to request or to look to recover a contribution or full cost, and what we're looking at is a contribution. And we understand that, you know, for families that are on low income, you know, that is going to be difficult for them, and they are going to feel that that's, you know, an additional burden. However, there is a 16 to 19 bursary fund that those families can apply for, which will help support them with the costs of that contribution for post-16 transport. We will also be writing to parents to talk to them about applying for that fund. It's not something that they apply to the council for. It's they apply to the education establishment, so that would be the college or the school that they are attending, and those assessments for eligibility for that fund is carried out by those establishments, so not by Thurrock. But you know, we will work with parents, we will signpost them, direct them, and provide as much information as possible. Our post-16 statement, which will be updated and published, you know, depending on whether the proposed contribution, you know, is agreed at Cabinet, which is going before Cabinet tomorrow evening. Our post-16 statement will then be updated with the contribution details. And, you know, we will work with families as much as we possibly can and support them in any way that we can with their transport. So I want to make it really clear, we're not taking away transport. So we're not stopping transport for children that are, or young people that are post-16. But what we are looking at is a contribution towards the cost of that. And if I, you know, just give you some idea about the average cost of transport, it's around 6,000 per young person for students attending a local provision. So the average cost for children, you know, for young people, 6,631. For students that are travelling outside of Thurrock, the average cost, this is for the academic year, is over £16,000. What we are looking at in terms of a contribution is £23.69 for families for post-16 transport, and this is reduced to £11.85 for those families that are on low income. So that's a weekly contribution towards that transport for those families, and we will look at several payment options. So we will look at whether a family might prefer to do a monthly payment or a termly or an annual payment for that contribution. Just looking at, you know, what that equates to. So for a parent on a low income, that sort of cost equates to £40, just over £40 per month. And that's sort of paid over 11 months, so that the contribution is paid, you know, within the academic year. Just thinking, going on to sort of, you know, how many post-16 students we've got. We've actually got 101 post-16 students that we currently provide transport for. So 32 of those, we have looked, you know, we've looked at the whole number. 32 of those are from a low-income family. That may well change, you know, once we get applications come through September, you know, for September. But that's what our current number is. I think the only other things I would probably like to add is we did some benchmarking. So we looked at other authorities from the Eastern region, and the sort of contribution, I would say that most local authorities, if they haven't already got a contribution in place, that it's certainly something that they are now looking at. I guess given, you know, the financial situation that councils find themselves in. So we looked at neighbouring authorities. You know, the highest contribution required from one local authority was over £1,500 for a young person. So what we have looked at is, you know, we've looked at Essex. We didn't want our families to be paying any more than Essex, you know. So, you know, we've looked at sort of trying to be in line with them, really, so that they weren't, you know, our Thurrock families weren't paying more. I think that's probably, I'll probably stop there and hand over for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, this is a topic I think we've discussed quite a lot, haven't we? And it is quite a sensitive issue. So I just wanted to clarify a few things. With the changing in the distance to the classification of nearest school, if a parent chooses a school that's out of that area because they might have a particular area that they want for their child, like music or something like that, if that's a choice, are they able to do that on the understanding that they wouldn't get funded for transport? Is that an option for them?
You know, parents absolutely have the right to choose the school that they want their child to attend. But if it's over the distance, if it's not their nearest school, then they will need to be able to fund the transport. They wouldn't be eligible under the policy.
That seems sensible. And the new charges that are coming in for the over 16 SEND children, the prices that we've got of £23 a week or £11 a week, is that before or after any bursaries are accessed?
So that's the contribution rate. If families are applying for bursaries, we wouldn't know what they would be funded, what that bursary rate would be. The bursary fund goes up to £1,200 per year, and that can cover transport, books, equipment. So, you know, families can use whatever the contribution is that they get towards, you know, funding their transport.
Is that bursary means tested? So, or is it so that the...
It is means tested, yeah, because it's really for low-income families.
So it would only be the sort of families that are paying the £11 a week that would likely be
Yes.
able to access that. What sort of figures are you expecting of parents that either won't or can't pay these fees? Are you expecting to get a certain level of debt, or what's your sort of expectation on that?
We've talked to other authorities, and they don't have parents that aren't contributing. So, you know, but we would have to work with those families. I think this is something new for Thurrock. We don't know, you know, whether families are going to struggle, but, you know, we will work with those families.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Councillor Muldowney, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for the report. Thank you, Chair. It would have been nice to see a copy of the new policy, just to see whether, you know, I mean, you say that you've taken on the feedback from the survey, because the survey was quite interesting, the responses, I thought. I think it's good that there are two policies now, that makes that clearer. That the travel assistance budget has become part of that policy. I also think that I've always thought it was massively overcomplicated, that for parents to be eligible, they had to apply for the 3 nearest primary schools and or the 6 nearest secondary schools to the home address, and replace the nearest, so now it's only they've got to apply to the nearest school. But I mean, this, so I think that's good, but is that going to have an implication on budget? Because obviously that first configuration would seem to me, logically, to result in less eligibility than the changes to the policy. And I understand that has to be made, and I think it's a good to bring it in line with the new guidance and regulation. But is there a budget implication there?
I have said in my report actually that there will potentially be a financial risk to that, because we're now not, you know, if we're not asking families to stay on the waiting list, so then we wouldn't be able to offer them a nearer school. That then means that they're no longer eligible for transport. So there are implications to that. What that looks like in real terms, we don't know yet, because, you know, we're trying to make it really clear to families that, you know, to be eligible for transport in the first place, you have to have applied for your nearest school. You know, not a school that's, you know, maybe 4 or 5 miles down the road. And, you know, just being really clear in the policy, which is published as an appendix, I believe. I think I've seen that, as a draft. Just being really clear to families and trying to be really clear. Now that we've got better attendance at our admissions webinars that we do towards the end of the year, around sort of September, October, really kind of promoting the home to school transport and you know what the eligibility criteria is, so they're almost really aware of that before they apply for school places for main round for National Offer Day.
Sorry, can you clarify again what that change is? So that now for people to, so if they don't get their nearest school, but they have to go, the child has to go somewhere else to a further school, and it meets whatever the distance is. I think it's 1.5 miles and 2 and 3 miles. Then they are eligible, as long as, does it have to be their first choice, the nearest school, or?
Normally, yes, but if you've got a school that's quite close in distance, and if we can't offer that school because that school's full, we will then, it's called an unplaced offer, so we will place them at the next nearest school. If they then meet the transport, you know, eligibility for transport distance criteria, you know, and it's over the 2 or 3 miles, then they will be eligible for transport. And then we can't, you know, we wouldn't be looking for those families to move back to a closer school, if you like, or to their nearest school if a place becomes available. But they can if they wish to.
Okay, and there was also something about, you know, you can't move people to disrupt children's education by moving them to a nearer school if a nearer school comes up.
And that's the bit about, you know, when we place them somewhere else because we can't offer them their nearest. So if we place them, you know, the nearest school that might have places available might be 4 or 5 miles down the road. We wouldn't then expect them to stay on the waiting list. So we're removing that, so they don't need to stay on the waiting list, to be offered a nearer school, to then lose their transport, and that child's education is then disrupted.
Okay, so that probably is going to have a budget implication, but I actually welcome it because it does simplify the system for. I mean, I know when we've had discussions before about eligibility for home to school transport, and a lot of parents only apply for one school, thinking that they're more likely to get it, which, you know, I know you do information sessions where you say no, you should apply for all 6 of your options. to make sure that, you know, your child does get allocated at least your second or third preference, hopefully, one of your preferences. Okay, so, and then moving on to the post-16 home to school transport. So obviously this came in as a late cost saving because of other costs that were found not to be deliverable. Now, what other options did you look at? Because 450, I can tell you, families on universal credit or whatever disability allowances they're on have not got 450 quid lying around to contribute to home to school transport. So this is going to put extra pressure on families who really have been disproportionately disadvantaged by national government policy for nearly 15 years. And I've had feedback sort of from parents to say, well, they won't be able to afford to do the transport. So were any other options looked at, maybe higher charges for families that are more able to afford it and lower, you know, keeping it free for low-income parents?
No, we didn't. We looked at a charge, you know, implementing a charge for everybody, but obviously a lower rate for those that are income family, you know, those that are from a low income family. You know, one of the other things that we will be looking at is travel training. So looking at assessing young people, particularly if they're travelling, actually not just locally, but travelling further to out-of-borough establishments where it's possible, where they're assessed. We absolutely appreciate that not every young person is going to be able to travel independently, but there will be some that will. And actually, you know, for those young people, they wouldn't need funding. They wouldn't need their travel funding because a lot of those already get bus passes. So, you know, we might be able to teach that, you know, there might be some of that we can do, take away that need altogether through the travel training programme.
Okay, but I mean that. So nothing. You didn't look at a different sliding scale where maybe parents that could afford it more would be charged more, so that we could actually subsidise the travel of those families that are really only just about managing in the middle of a cost of living crisis, you know, with all the other things that are going on, and a predicted more slashing of benefits budget coming down the line to fund these national insurance decreases.
I do appreciate it is difficult, and I think, you know, we've also got budgetary pressures on home to school transport that we need to be able to deliver for, you know, the statutory school age. You know, we've got more children with EHCPs coming that we then have to transport. So, you know, the budget for, you know, for our statutory duty, for delivering on our statutory duty, is increasing with the more and more children that become eligible, and you know, and you know, we've got savings as well that we need to look at.
I mean, I understand that, but I just wish that there had been more exploration of options that didn't put this extra burden of 450 quid a year onto, you know, the most vulnerable families in the borough.
Thank you. I think, as the point raised earlier with regards to the low-income families, there is the bursary that should potentially help and even cover all those costs as well for the low-income, which is, you know, some comfort, isn't it? For that.
Absolutely. And as I said, we will contact those families and start talking to them now, you know, about, you know, making sure that they know how to apply for that bursary, where they find the information.
So do you have sort of information on what families are eligible and what they would be eligible for?
We don't undertake the assessments, as I've said. Those families need to apply directly to the colleges for that bursary. So they're assessed by the colleges, not by Thurrock. So all we can do is, you know, promote with those families, you know, to go off and, you know, to apply for it if they need help. You know, we're happy to help them wherever we can. You know, we'll work with schools, you know, particularly some of the schools that, you know, the children attend, that if they're moving on, you know, really helping support them as much as we can to get access to that fund, which will help their contribution, help towards the cost of the contribution for them.
But we don't know anything about the criteria or who's going to be eligible and for how much, etc.
It will be families that are of low income that will be eligible, but what they're assessed on, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because that's not done by us, that's done by the education establishment that the child is going to be attending. They may decide that, you know, depending on how much support that young person needs, that, you know, there's some that's given for transport, some that's given for equipment and books and things. So I do know that there is a fund up to £1,200, but how much of that and how that assessment is done, I wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, one point, obviously, it's your meeting, you know, I think, but for the decorum of the meeting, all questions by member has to go through Chair. Just a point. And my other question is, on, you know, obviously you've done this consultation, and I understand post 16 is not a statutory duty of the council. But if you look at the consultation, you know, it's like obviously majority of people, they have had their say against these charges. So obviously, you know, we do these consultation to get residents or users' ideas. But if you are not kind of listening to them, then what is the point of these consultation? And if they have said no, then why are we proposing this? I understand we have to make some savings.
I think, you know, I think what I'd like to say is actually we have listened to them. You know, there are proposed changes that actually they're in agreement to, that we, or there are things that they felt that we should change, like making sure the policy is clear, separate policies for mainstream SEN, you know, and we have listened to them and we have made those changes, including the travel assistance budget. I think the contribution towards post-16 is it is a difficult change to propose and to implement. I would add that Cabinet previously agreed this was previously agreed back in 2020, but we felt that because of the time lapse that had happened, that actually we should reconsult on that. You know, there is the bursary fund, as I've talked about. There are, you know, there is the financial support out there for those families from a low income, and we will, of course, you know, help them as much as we possibly can. But we also have, you know, statutory duties and budget pressures that, you know, that are increasing year on year.
Thank you. Just one more, you know, obviously these are some vulnerable families, you know, they are on low income. So you did mention extra funding and bursary. So is there any way we can make this kind of like, you know, a more kind of clear to them, like, you know, there is some extra funding available or you can apply or through schools? Or is there any mechanism, or we can just responsible only for our charges? Or
We can signpost them, and we will do that. We do that already, actually, on our website. But, you know, some of the work that we would like to is communicate to those parents. So write to them, you know, parents that, you know, maybe attend special provision, you know, special schools locally, where their children are transitioning to post-16, you know, through our Preparing for Adulthood team, you know, really sort of getting that message out about, you know, this financial support that is available to them if they, you know, if they want to apply for it, and also if they need help, to let us know so that they can be supported with, you know, making those applications.
Councillor Hotstein.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know, Sarah, whether it's for you to answer or whether it's sort of been and gone and it's irrelevant, but there's a couple of mentions about when it went to Cabinet on the 22nd of July 2020, mentioned on page 43 and then again on page 45, 2.10. Twice it says Cabinet approved the revised policy along with a recommendation to introduce a contribution towards send post-16 transport. What happened to that? Because it's mentioned twice, but obviously I take it wasn't introduced.
No, it wasn't introduced. at that time, although it was approved, it wasn't introduced, and you know, the council continued to fund, and I think we were, you know, in a different financial position to what we are now. And that's why we felt that we should, you know, reconsult, because actually it hadn't gone into the policy, although it had been approved, and we were now doing a refresh of the policy because of the statutory guidance that was released.
Thank you. Chair, can I ask one more question? Is that okay? Thank you. Just on page 46, 2.13, just to clarify in my head, when we talk about send post-16 transport, we're talking about young people with EHCPs only? Is that for the post-16 transport?
Yes.
Just for my own clarification, because I've got a bit confused, halfway across down, this is obviously so post-16 transport, because the council does not have a statutory duty to provide free travel for young people between the ages of 16 and 19. So obviously I know that an EHCP can carry up to 25 if there's educational outcomes, but so from the age of 19 to 25, the council has a responsibility to provide free travel. So it stops at 16 and then starts again at 19.
It does.
That is, I have read that right.
Yes, and that is statutory guidance.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
No, you are absolutely correct.
So there's not going to be any option that I'm suggesting you should, but there's no planning to introduce 19 to 25 because it's statutory.
Because it's statutory, and the guidance states that 19. So a young person has to have been attending that college or that educational establishment before their 19th birthday and continuing their education. At that point, from 19 to 25, we then have a statutory responsibility. I know.
Thank you. How bizarre. Thank you.
I think that's possibly linked to the bursaries that 16 to 18 providers receive. So that's linked to deprivation within the thing. Each setting will determine its own policy. So I think post-19 they don't get that, and 16, and I think that reflects where the funding's directed to.
Thank you. Thanks both. Thank you, Chair.
As a point on that, I think it would probably encourage staying in higher education as well. That might be one thing behind it as well, maybe a theory behind the costing there. Councillor Panjala.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. As per the report showing that total 101 families comes under like a post-16 cent, and out of that 132 families are low-level income. So I'm more concerned about the contribution from the low income, because one family we are kind of collecting 450 pounds per year. So altogether, like a 32 families, we council going to collect 14,409 pounds total. So that is like as per council spending millions of money. This 14,409 for the 32 families is not very tough time is going on, and it will be. My recommendation is to: is there any chances to stop charges contributing? Whatever collection we're going to collect from this low-level income, because it's cost of living and every thing is increased. So very difficult time is going on, and already last year we increased the council tax this year, and families are impacting a lot of difficult time is going on. So I'm worried about only the low level income. Is there any possibilities, because 14,409 pounds will not going to be big task for the council point of view, but the family's point of view is a very very difficult, and I don't want to, because of this cost, tomorrow no parent should not stop the sending kids to the school. That is my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that, which is why the bursary, I know I've talked quite a bit about the bursary, is to help support those families. This is the first year that we are actually proposing to bring this change in. The council is in a different financial position to what we were previously. We don't take it lightly that we're, having to look at, contributions from families. But we do have a budget, and we do, have lots and lots of children becoming eligible for transport. And, the EHCPs, as David has already mentioned, is increasing. And our budget has also increased for statutory, for our statutory duty to provide transport for those children. So.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be controversial. I don't actually object to this. I think I approve it. So I'm going to be controversial there. The only question is, if someone goes into arrears of maybe it pays it once or twice and then stops paying it, is there a contingency? Will you stop the transport? Because if I'm right, it's only for a 3-year period, potentially, isn't it? This £445 or £1,500 odd pounds. It's for a 3-year period. So say if you stop paying it after 4 months, would you stop the provision of transport for that young person? Or have you thought of just thinking ahead of that?
We have thought about that, and it's something that we would have to deal with if that happens. Obviously, we would work with those families to see how we might be able to help support them in terms of paying for that transport. And part of what we would do is collect, which is why we've got the different payment options, and collecting that contribution up front. At this stage, until it's implemented and we face any difficulties, then we would have to look at that. I mean, what I would say is we wouldn't stop transport immediately, but we may have to look at it case by case, is what I would say.
I think it will be interesting to see how many get the bursary as well, and I think then we'll be able to make a better outlook on the position as well. Councillor Mulder.
Yeah, I mean, as it currently stands, I'm not in favour of it. I think that more work should have been done to look at how to sort of maybe have a sliding scale, so more well-off families might be charged more, so that low-income families couldn't. I mean, the bursary could potentially be a part of paying for that, but I mean, just looking at our own emergency funds, I know that as a matter of course people are turned down, just as a matter of course, because there's not enough money in there to go around everybody. So we've got people being turned down on first attempt. It's only those that go back and try again that actually get that money. So for me, I don't know enough about the bursary and whether that's going to make up that shortfall. If it does, that's great, but maybe that's still money being taken away from other things that student might have needed to support them in their education. And it just goes against the grain to be charging, people who are on the absolute breadline at the moment an extra £450 a year for transport.
Any further questions, or shall we? Okay, thank you very much for that. So we have got some recommendations here. So the proposed recommendations below to commence from 1st of April 2024 for the start of the academic year 2024 to 2025 for new families applying for travel assistance. We've got recommendation 1.1. Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommends that Cabinet agrees and adopts the new individual SEND and mainstream home to school travel and transport policy 2024 to 2025 for statutory school age pupils aged 5 to 16 years. Is the recommendation agreed?
Agreed.
Recommendation 1.2. Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommends that Cabinet agrees to implement a weekly parent contribution towards SEND post-16 travel assistance each year of £23.69. This is reduced to £11.85 for low-income families. Is the recommendation agreed?
I don't agree to that. Okay. Sorry, can I also make a comment on this? Is going to Cabinet tomorrow. So again, the BVI report highlighted that there needed to be, some time between scrutiny recommendations being made. I mean, my recommendation would be to have a look at it again and see if you can stop the charge for low-income families. That's my view on it. I don't know what other committee members think, but that's my view. And this is going to Cabinet tomorrow. There's no time to absorb really the discussions that we've had tonight before Cabinet makes a decision on it tomorrow. So I just wanted to highlight that.
It has been discussed at budget, so it has been around for a bit. Sorry, yes, Councillor Carter.
I want to assure committee, I will be providing a verbal update on committee's views to Cabinet, as I have done on previous occasions. Things have been discussed here before they've gone Cabinet. I share your views that it's worrying that things go from committee to Cabinet, but this has been heavily scrutinised over 2 corporate ONS committees. It went through on the budget, so I'm quite worried if people have let it go through as such on the budget by abstaining or voting for and then voting against. I think you might want to seek some advice before you do that, just a recommendation or a bit of advice. Be wrong on that totally, but
yes.
Yeah, sorry, just I think on Councillor Carter's point, so I think the savings has already been agreed in the budget. So,
Yes.
yeah, but in a way, you know, it has been approved by in the budget, so I'm not sure if what recommendation difference will make to, honestly, yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone still has the right to
Yeah,
give
no,
their
absolutely,
opinion
yeah,
on it. So, if we go for who agrees with the recommendation, who agrees with the recommendation? Okay, we got, yeah. Who is rejecting the recommendation? Rejecting or abstaining?
Low income.
Yeah. So you're all rejecting it. Okay, we've got that. So it's all noted. Okay.
I think it's only members that can vote.
Right.
Sorry. Sorry, Nicola.
That's all right.
But I think for democratic services, this is important to note. Parent governor is also agreeing to this.
Yeah, but I mean the recommendation falls on that vote.
Okay, so that brings item 9 to an end. So we're now going to move to item 10, which is the overview of responsibilities from the portfolio holder for education. And may I ask Councillor Carter to introduce the report, please?
thank you, Chair, for allowing me to present this report. I would like to start by thanking all officers and staff for the fantastic work they have provided through the year. Your work this year has been exceptional. I'd also like to thank all our schools for the work they have done. Throughout the year, Thurrock had the best performing Key Stage 2 attainment in the Eastern region, and this is the highlight of the fantastic work carried out by our academies. This year had not been without challenge, most notably when guidance changed over RAC over schools. Our academies were truly fantastic and rose to the challenge, ensuring that education of pupils was at the forefront of every decision, and I welcome the government's recent announcement to rebuild these schools. I want to take this time to congratulate our academies for rising to an exceptional challenge. I've enjoyed my first year as the portfolio holder and engaging with our schools. I've seen a school choir performance in Purfleet, been given a tour of Chadwell Primary and Deanholm by pupils, and most recently visited the Olive Academy and seen the exceptional work carried out by this academy. I'm not going to name every school I've visited, but would like to thank every school that has allowed me to visit. As members will see from this report, it has been a great year for our academies, and let's hope we continue to see improvement in education as we have in recent years. Since the BBI was published, it has been clear that scrutiny has not been done right. As a result, I had decided to attend every overview and scrutiny committee, as this council can focus on improving its functioning. Sadly, as we've seen from the events today, we saw at today's committee, I think commissioners and residents will be very disappointed by what they saw today. I hope to see scrutiny improve, and I will hope any future portfolio holder will also come to every ONS committee to hear the scrutiny of the committee. I take it you've all read the report, so I'm open to any questions.
Thank you for your report. It's good to see that you're taking a keen interest in the education and visiting schools. Is anyone, I'm sure there are lots of questions for you. Who shall we go with first? Councillor.
Hello, thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report, Councillor Carter. I'm glad that you've highlighted the the achievement of schools. However, when we look at secondary schools, we're actually second from the bottom of schools within the East of England area. This is not something that you ever highlight. Only Bedford is actually worse. So our rating's only 76.9% good and outstanding. As we heard at last month's committee meeting, part of that performance is due to three of our schools, which has been designated as inadequate, and two that requires improvement. Two of them are secondary and one's primary, not having been rebrokered for 2 years. So my question to you is, because this covers the span of time when not only have you been portfolio holder, but you were actually chair of this committee, why hasn't that issue been highlighted before? And what have you done? What have you specifically done to address that issue over the last 2 years?
It's very, very disappointing. And firstly, thank you for your question, and you raised some good points. It's very, very disappointing to see what's happened with Gable Hall over the years. When I went there, when I was in secondary school, it was always one of the top ranked in the country, and it's very hard to see how it's not done as well over the years. I think we'll all agree. This academy is looking for rebrokerage with the Mossbourne Academy Trust, which has been based out of London. That is for the academy and the new trust to work out to trust that we are the strong critical friend. I've said those words a lot this year of the academies. We are not someone who tells them what to do. We support, but we don't demand. I don't know if Michelle wants to come in on that at all, or Sarah.
I didn't actually hear an answer to my question, which is what have you done about this? So you were chair of the Scrutiny Committee. You're saying that Scrutiny isn't working, and you're giving an example of that tonight. However, you were chair of the Scrutiny Committee last year when these schools weren't rebrokered. Were you aware of that as chair of the committee? Because from what I've seen, none of that was raised this year. And obviously you're portfolio holder this year. So were you aware of this situation, of the breakdown in the rebrokerage? And what specifically have you done to address that issue?
Well, it's been an ever-changing situation, to be honest. When I first came in, it looked like another provider was going to take over, and that fell through. And then it's another one has come forward. So it's been constantly changing. But I want to reiterate, this is not, the council should not get involved in this position with schools having to find academy trust. We can make recommendations, but we are the strong critical friend. We have no place to demand our academies do certain things. That's not our place at all.
So it's not only not something you hadn't picked up on, it's something that you don't think that we should be discussing in this committee? Is that what I understand from your answer?
It's not for me to say what is discussed at this committee in portfolio as a portfolio holder, and I have come to visit this committee every session of this year, because I want to hear your views on that, and I've only put my hand up to ask questions to the Youth Cabinet, and I think now to thank David. But it is for the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee to set its own agenda. It would be entirely inappropriate for me to get involved in that. I think you would actually agree with that, to be honest.
So I'm assuming from your answer that you haven't done anything about that. So can I ask another question? Yes. So in terms of the RAC, can you answer the question I asked earlier? So up until, I mean, obviously you weren't aware of the RAC issue until it was raised by Councillor Kent in full council. Then it seems like you did converse with officers about that, and we did have a series of briefing notes. But you hadn't visited any of the schools affected by RAC until after the November scrutiny meeting held you to account on that. That is correct, isn't it? It's correct that you hadn't been to visit any of the schools affected by RAC before the November scrutiny meeting. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I would have liked to, didn't want to answer the question earlier because, as I pointed out, that was a terrible example of an item of urgent business, And I think commissioners and residents are going to be, well, not residents, the residents who get involved are going to be quite horrified at how this process has just dropped off over the years. Of course, I think it's wrong to say that councillor brought it to my attention, because the guidance when that question was raised was completely different to when it became an issue, and which was a last-minute thing like that, changed overnight, and then we all had to scramble to do it. And I again want to thank the officers who have done fantastic work over this, and our academies. Like St Clair's had 34 classrooms that it could no longer use, and they rose to that challenge. And I completely agree with you. Those Losberger units are incredible, absolutely incredible. And it's only for our academies working like that, working so well, have we been able to keep that the education running. I did want to challenge something you said earlier, and that was that a PE lesson was held in a tent. You remember saying this? Well, most PE lessons are held outside anyway. So I think it's a bit unreasonable to make that claim, because I don't know what anyone else did at school, but we often ran around the field even in the dead of winter. But I don't know what the particular session of the PE was, but PE lessons often happen outdoors. I think by definition they happen more indoors, certainly at primary school level at least. Have I missed anything that you asked?
No, thank you for confirming that you hadn't visited any of the schools affected by RAC before the November scrutiny meeting. Finally, I think residents who are looking at this meeting are going to be more disappointed in your lack of concern and lack of actual action. So just to correct something you said before I go on to the PE lesson item, is that the RAC issues guidance was issued over the summer before. Yeah, and then it changed at the last meeting. So Thursday 3:30 p.m. before the Monday return of school, all the guidance changed. So the guidance was there before that, but obviously the change in guidance, that last minute change in guidance, put extreme pressure onto our schools. And I agree with you that they've definitely risen to the challenge. However, every head teacher that I spoke to when I went to visit did confirm that it had obviously had an impact on children's learning. You know, that was across the board. Now, going back to, I don't understand why you're challenging me about something that I saw while I was on a visit. There was a PE lesson happening in the Arthur Bugler marquee tent when we've been told that no lessons were taking place. That's not actually the case, which is why it's so important for people to actually go and visit these places, even if it's not our responsibility to do the school improvements. We're agreed on that. We do still have a responsibility, if we're doing proper scrutiny, which is what you say you want, to go along and see for ourselves. So you hadn't done that before telling us that we could go if we had any concerns. I mean, I was really dismayed by your attitude at that meeting and the lack of concern you seemed to demonstrate for what was happening in these schools. So when you did go and visit the schools, what kind of questions did you ask? Because you seem to have taken at face value what was in the briefing note. We were also promised a briefing note mid-February which didn't arrive, which is why I asked for the urgent item of business. So it does really seem as if you really didn't have a grip on the issue over the course of the year. Would you agree with that?
No, not at all. That's a rather silly thing. Firstly, I wasn't going to go straight away, ever, when these schools had been completely upturned and officers were in touch with these schools all the time. Like, I remember when this first started, for the first few weeks, Michelle and Sarah here must have absolutely been sick of seeing my name on their phone. We were in constant chat with the academy. There is no point where we weren't in contact with these academies that were affected. There was concern at first for 2 more schools that actually in the end didn't have RAC. And even those ones we were in contact with as we awaited assessments. This council has always taken this very, very seriously. And I think that the comment on my attitude is ridiculous. to be honest, because this has been the forefront of the education department for about a year. And yes, I've come to scrutiny every session. I don't think any other portfolio holder has done that. I don't know how far we've got to go back for that, because it is very important that scrutiny is done right. And that is not political point scoring, which I feel this is. And feel free to disagree with me on that. But the academies have done their job, and we have done ours at supporting them, at being that strong critical friend that was there for them.
Okay, well, I think we're going to have to agree to differ on that. Can I ask another question?
Yes.
Yeah. So we heard last week, we heard at the last committee meeting that the attainment gap between disadvantaged and advantaged pupils has increased to almost 20%. So this is a massively increased gap under your watch. When did you become aware of this, and what have you done about it?
Sorry, while you're asking that question, I have to apologise. I didn't answer one of your last questions, which was about what I had done at secondary schools. I just remembered that as I stopped speaking. I have visited Gable Hall. I have a great relationship with Gable Hall. As a result, like a lot of the teachers that teach there taught me. And so I have those connections, and I've always been chatting with them. Your second one about the attainment gap. Firstly, I'm just going to pass that over to Michelle to give a bit more clarity on what you're saying there.
Thanks, colleagues. Apologies, I'll try and keep my voice going. So there is an issue with the attainment gap. We absolutely recognise that. We recognise that there are some key points that are challenged for that, and we talked a little bit earlier around transitions and where we're getting some of those challenges and what we can do to put in extra support around those pinch points, for want of a better word. You also raised, Councillor Muldowney, about Key Stage 4 results. I absolutely agree. You know, we have remained, frustratingly, I have to say, stubbornly sort of below where I'd like us to be at secondary, which is more frustrating because we do so well at Key Stage 2. So Key Stage 2, we do really, really well. And then we move into Key Stage 4, and what we're looking at again is, are there things going on around transition? What more can we put in for some of these children that do struggle going from primary into secondary? I think the other thing around the attainment gap, there is no doubt in my mind, and forgive me, I've got COVID, so to mention it again is probably not very helpful, but there's no doubt in my mind we've still got hang up from that. We've still got groups of children going through that are still party to the really missed education that took place during COVID. And that's not to say schools didn't do their absolute best, because they did. But there is still an issue around that sort of catch up. So we're looking at all of that individually. You know, we do an awful lot around early years. So we want to make sure that we're picking up sort of any issues at early years, so that we're trying to address it at all stages of the education journey. And that's what we'll be looking to do. I think one of the other things as an education team we've been looking at, we've got some specific work going on with our schools around some of these key areas. And clearly that's something that I'd be more than happy to bring back to committee, because I know it's an issue. I recognise it as an issue. And I'm more than happy to bring it back in the next municipal year for committee to review, to see where we are with some of these things we've introduced. What's the impact? Because actually, if we're doing these things, what's been the change? What has been the impact? So we'll be looking to bring that, if committee feel that would be a report you'd like to see back.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I know that I've already asked for work on pupil premium to come onto the agenda next year, or whether that will make it to the new big scrutiny agenda, I'm not sure, but I hope we do, because I think it's very worrying, the attainment gap in particular, because we were doing, historically, we've done well on closing that attainment gap, and yes, obviously COVID has been a part of that, and obviously now we don't know what the impact of the RAC disruption is also going to have on children. Certainly the head teachers did all acknowledge that there was an impact, which they are closely monitoring, you know, and they're doing their best on it. But I think that's something that we need to keep a really firm weather eye on, and I'd welcome it coming back, a proper report coming back to committee. Thank you.
Can I just make, Chair, apologies, just one more point, because this is something I've picked up with Councillor Muldowney. We have got a cohort of children that are really struggling to get back to school. And this is something Councillor Muldowney talks quite a lot about in our shadow portfolio meetings, as does Councillor Carter, to be honest. So we have those conversations. And I think there is something about what we can put in place for some of those children that are still really struggling. And it's not that many, colleagues, but it's enough that we want to make sure we're doing something for that cohort as well. So I'd include some of that, if I may, Chair. You may, whoever the chair may be at future meetings, but I'll include some of that as well. So we've got a really rounded report around what we're doing around some of our most vulnerable children and young people.
Thank you. I mean, I assume there is, but what sort of link is there between the children that don't attend very well and the attainment at the stage 4? Is it quite a clear link? Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So improving attendance will improve the latter, and so, okay. Any further questions? Who's first? Councillor Hartstein.
Thank you. I've just got a few questions. Page 80, when we're talking about early years, could I just clarify, just in terms of statutory responsibility, it's just talking about 92% of our early years providers are judged to be good or outstanding by Ofsted. It's just when you talk there about the settings that are not good, have not engaged with our school effectiveness team, who deliver the statutory responsibility of the council and so on. Am I right then that there's no statutory duty for a setting or for a PVI for an early years to engage? The reason I ask that is that I wonder, I don't know if it's a euphemism or what, but as a result we're offering settings where Ofsted ratings have dropped further advice and support. But I was just wondering, you know, horses and dragging horses to water and things. Thank you.
Shall I pick that one up, Councillor Carter?
You can, yep, sure.
Yeah, okay. So you're absolutely right, Councillor Hartstein. There is an issue. We do really well at early years. I'm proud of our early years team. We've kept a very strong early years team. We think that's really important. We think, you know, that early engagement in education is critical, and I don't think anybody around the table would disagree with that. So we've worked hard. What we're trying to do is that 8%, we're trying to make sure that we've got a different offer to re-engage them back in, because actually I want to see all our providers good or better, because actually we know if our small little people are in good or better provisions, it makes such a world of difference around school readiness and getting them ready to go into the next phase of their education journey. So we do look at sort of bespoke offers. We do contact them directly and say, because most of our providers join our forums, our training, a whole range of things, but there's just a small group that just don't engage, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to re-engage them so that we can get to that all of our settings are good or better, because we value and recognise the importance of that early years phase.
Thank you. Thank you. Could I ask another couple? Thank you. Just on page 80 now, Councillor Carter, just down on send. I suppose it's just something I wanted to clarify, just to pick on something you said at overview and scrutiny. The first line of that, in December 2023, Thurrock maintained 2,294 EHCPs. I know you said that overview and scrutiny that Thurrock had the most EHCPs.
I don't think I said the most. I know it's got higher than average.
You said it 1 minute and 1 hour and 3 minutes. You did, because I went back and listened.
Was I saying about Essex?
No, you just said in general. I just wanted to clarify. That. That was all. Because obviously I don't think they have. I don't think Thurrock. Well, not. I don't think I know Thurrock haven't got.
We're significantly higher than our statistical neighbours. I'm sorry if I misspoke there. Michelle can bring in. I believe we're at about 5%.
Yes,
as a
5%.
total.
Yeah, national average is 4.4.
Yeah, I apologise if I misspoke then.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. But on a positive, I was really pleased to see that how the 20-week assessments has gone from 59.9 to 89, which is brilliant. What accounted for that uptick, and is it continuing? Because that's really good news, that massive uptick in 2 years. Sorry, page 81, right at the top, talking about the 20-week deadline for EHCPs. Just saying how good it is in 2 years. That's a massive uptick, and is that carrying on? Thank you.
Yes,
Can I say that? Oh, apologies, Councillor Carter, by all means.
Michelle, please get better and rest. Oh, sorry, I have to take a while to remember the question now. It's fantastic, yes, that this has happened in there. And as we just said, Thurrock does have more EHCPs than their average. This could be a chance of we do issue them more as well. This is again an area where we are just doing a lot better than statistical neighbours. Like a lot of corporate parenting things as well, not just SEND, are always just above the national average, and it's an area we're doing really good on. I will now let Michelle come in with the detail.
Thank you so much. I do apologise, colleagues. It's difficult when you're virtual, isn't it? You're so keen to sort of want to sort of talk. So thank you ever so much for the question. Yes, there's a real correlation here. We are now fully staffed, and that's made a real impact to us. And I think when we were at 59.9, we were really struggling around staffing. We were really struggling. We had a recruitment drive. And then you have to get staff in, and then you have to train them, and it's quite a process actually. So for us, the real difference has been the authority's commitment to SEND, which is really positive, and the fact that we've been able to recruit staff, train staff, and high quality staff. So if I think back historically, we would send plans out for plan writers. We don't ever do that now. Our staff write plans, which is a massive shift from where we were a couple of years ago. Will it continue? It's challenging, and the bit that's challenging for us, of course, is EPs. So like all local authorities, we're really struggling around the recruitment of EPs. We've got significant challenges there. We're holding our own at the moment, Councillor. But as I said, my concern is EPs. We're just about to go to recruit. It's a challenging market, and we'll have to see what happens. But we're doing our absolute best to make sure that we can maintain that level, around 20 weeks.
Lovely, thank you. That's really good news. Thank you. It's really good to hear that. I'll hang on a minute. I've probably got some more, but I'll let others come in. Thank you.
Just saying that we might need to just try and wrap this one up. Maybe one more question from Councillor Abbas, because it's running quite late now.
But people have got questions.
Okay. We're just mindful of the time and officers that have been at work all day.
Officers have been working for.
Yeah. So I think if we can just keep questions brief. If you have got some that you'd still like to ask, Councillor Hudson, we can take them. Just take them quite briefly. That's right, Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, portfolio holder, for your report and making sure you are here, in every single meeting. So thank you, and thanks to all the officers, for your good work. In terms of RAC, obviously, we all have concerns, but my concern is not when you have visited the schools or academies. My concerns are disruption in schools, in studies, children's safety. And I was very pleased to learn from Councillor Muldooney's update, on the safety of those classrooms, proper partition, no noise in schools, no disruption to those educations. I think this is very encouraging, and thank you, to you and to all the officers for the good work, and the way you have liaised with all those schools and academies. So thank you for your good work. My only concern is on these GCSE results, where we are slightly, again, sorry, no slightly. We are our rate is 43% compared to national average, which is 65%. So are we taking any steps to make sure to kind of improve these standards?
Well, thank you for your question. Again, there is the Recovery and Improvement Grant is given by the DfE straight to the academy. It's not via us, so we aren't actually related on improvement at all. That is completely down to the academies and the Board of Governors, whoever they may be. And so it changes at once. I think the GCSE, it was well pointed out by Councillor Muldowney earlier that we have problems in the east of Thurrock as a whole. Like we've done, education across the country has improved so much. In 2010, 68% of schools were good or outstanding by Ofsted. Today it's 89%, well, in 2022 as of the last time. So we continue to see this improvement. I believe it is mostly from the academisation process. It is that the academies doing it themselves because they know how to run their schools better than we do at the end of the day, and they know how to improve it better than we do.
Councillor Hartstein.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be long, I promise. It was just to focus on EHE, please. So it's page 82, right up the top. It was only because obviously it's quite a current issue at the moment with children missing education. It talks, so second paragraph, in this current academic year, there are currently 345 children recorded as EHE. And pleased to see in terms of further 66 have returned to school. All I wanted to focus on, is this an upward trend? Is this a downward trend in terms of the amount of children that are EHE? And has there been a massive rise since COVID? And is there something in place where we are encouraging families to re-engage with school education? And then I won't ask any more. Thank you.
Well, yes, it's. So I'm very happy to hear. Actually, the first I heard today was that Councillor Muldowney also brought this up quite a lot in portfolio holder meetings, and I know Councillor Spate has as well. God, I am misspeaking today. But it is a concern, and it is good to see this movement in the right direction. But there has been, as that was what I was saying yesterday. I was like, why did I just say yesterday? There has been an uptick since COVID. It is COVID has affected everyone who gets education in a lot of ways. There was a lot of developmental delay, which is it's really sad to see because people were able to come into schools and teachers were able to see if something wasn't right. There then wasn't that for that period of time, and we are going to be dealing with the consequences of that for a very long time. But I do very much, like you, welcome that the 66 have returned to school, and it is an upward trend. I'll bring in Michelle for any more detail if she wants to.
No, I think you've covered it. Apart from to say we've got a really strong school attendance and support team, so they work really hard with families to look at ways of re-engaging sort of young people and children back into school. And I think that's evidenced by, the fact that we've managed to get some of those back into sort of school. I think EHE is an interesting one because there are some families that choose to EHE. And that is a choice. That is their choice. We do monitor all of that, of course. That's a statutory duty on the local authority. So we do monitor what that education's looking like. And actually, where we go and review and feel that it isn't quite where it needs to be, then there's action plans put into place, or we're looking at ways in which we can support the family to reconsider going back into sort of an education setting.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. And you're just quite right. Just to clarify that obviously it's parents' right to choose to EHE. It was the young people that had dropped out of the system since COVID. I think I was more focusing on. But thank you. Thanks for the clarity. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to ask a Cabinet Holder, Councillor Adam Carter, regarding this page number 79. The data showing that 90% schools in Thurrock judges by Ofsted to be good or better, 95% of primary schools and 76 is secondary schools. So are this data based on the last year Ofsted report or any particular year?
Sorry, could you do the last one?
Is the Ofsted 90% schools in Thurrock are judges by good or better. Out of that 90%, like 95% are primary schools are in better and 76 from the secondary school. So this data based on the previous year's Ofsted report or any particular year?
This is up-to-date data, and they're standalone figures for primary and secondary in brackets, and then a combined figure at the beginning. So our schools combined 90% good or outstanding, and and if you take primary schools as a whole separately, it's 95%, and secondary schools 76%, but you take them separately. Yeah.
As per the report showing that we have 39 primary schools, like majority are the primary schools, and they are doing 95% is very good, that one. But I am having concerns about the secondary schools. We have only 13 schools. So what is the reason for having like less percentage?
Well, again, it's a smaller number. So there's 39 primary schools compared to 13 secondary schools. That number is going to give us a bigger swing, and as we've identified, it is a lot in the east, with Hassenbrook requires improvement and Gable Hall School considered by Ofsted to be inadequate. So the numbers create a bigger swing of that. We're continuing to have a relationship with our academies as a strong critical friend, the three words I always use, and we will continue to have that. We look for improvements in Gable Hall, and we really hope in the new trust all the success there as they look to improve that school.
Did we identify what are the reasons, like did we identify secondary schools? So what are the reasons for having less performance?
Well, in that area, I want to be quite careful about what I say, firstly, because the Academy Trusts are our friends here, and we are supporting them when they have a bad review. We want to help them up, but you look at the individual Ofsted report for that. I'd think it is the best answer. But I don't really want to bad talk any academies as such. So, but we will still be the strong critical friend. We'll give constructive criticism, but privately.
Because I would like to give council need to prioritize on the secondary schools also, because secondary is an important thing. The secondary will going to help the people further studies and where they're going to build their career. So it's an important thing. So we need to focus. We know the Ofsted report, so we need to work out on the issues.
We are focusing on our secondaries, and it is a important area for us. We're hoping to see improvements. All two trusts, it has been a very turbulent time for them, and they have gone from some of the best schools in the country to not as much. But we're going to be there to support them as a strong critical friend. And as they transition into the Mossbourne Academy, we're going to be offering them all support we can as well, and we welcome their chance to turn things around at the school.
I have one more. I would like to congratulate about this EHCP 89% within 20 weeks compared to the national average. So these are the education healthcare plans we issued like 89%. So how many that is issued and implemented, or we issued that one from the Thurrock Council?
Do we issue the EHCPs?
Yeah, EHCPs. So EHCPs 89% in within 20 weeks has been issued. So I want to know whether we issued and implemented those plans, or only the issued in 20 weeks.
Sorry, I'll bring Michelle into that one, please.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Hello, Councillor. Yeah, once we issue a plan, Councillor, then it's implemented. So once a plan's been issued for a child or a young person, that goes to their educational institution, and then what's in that plan is then implemented. So, plan's issued, then we go on to implementation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Carter, for your report. There are no recommendations on this item, so we'll move to item 11.
Sorry, can I just say it is SEN in Focus week next week, so you're all more than welcome to have a look online and come along. Superstars, thank you.
Thank you. So we've got item 11, which is the School Capital Programme Update 2023 to 2024. May I ask Sarah to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I will make it fairly brief for everybody. I'm assuming that everybody's read the report. The key things in here are an increase in the funding. So we're looking at Tilbury Pioneer, and we're looking at either refurbishment. The cost of that has gone up against new build. Our preference is new build, really, given that the cost difference is, you know, although there is a bit there, it's actually that would be better for us and better for the school longevity. And this was already approved at Cabinet, but it's got to go back because of obviously the increase in the funding that we require. And there's an update on temporary classrooms that we've installed. Abbots Hall expansion is nearly complete. And the only other thing is around Olive SEMH provision, which we're looking at as a temporary for 5 years so that we can do secondary alternative provision in Thurrock and funding for that. I would say that all of the funding that we're looking at is not revenue funding, it's all basic needs, so not coming from our revenue grants. I think I will open to questions now, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from Councillor Muldoon?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sarah, for the report. Yes, well, I'm very familiar with this school because my son went there when it was Manor and then got a terrible Ofsted report and probably the worst I've ever seen, which didn't surprise me, actually. And then they got moved to the Gateway Primary Free School, which promised us the world and then had a terrible Ofsted report. So my son really was severely disadvantaged in his educational career. Luckily, he's a bright lad, so he has come through the other end and hopefully will be going to university if he can get the grades. But I just wanted to say it's been a long time coming because I know when they closed Manor, they actually closed down Manor and they moved everybody over to the Primary Free and renamed it as the Tilbury Pioneer. There was works that needed to be done then and that was all put on hold. So this has been a long time coming. Having read the report, I'm very happy to support the preferred option for the rebuild, as it's not that much more. You know, we haven't got the budgetary constraints that we have if it was coming out of the revenue budget. So it's going to give that extra longevity to the life of the school. I think it's absolutely the best value option from the information in this report. So very happy to support that recommendation.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Officer, for your report. I just need a clarification, you know, on this, your executive summary, it says Cabinet approved a budget of 3 million for procurement process to appoint and design and a multidisciplinary project team to undertake required surveys and develop a detailed plan. So is this 3 million just to kind of appoint and designing, or is it also includes refurbishment?
It included the refurbishment, but okay. Because we then got that approval to get to have the design team in, because of some of the building control changes in terms of, so the 3 million was the budget, but now because of the changes that we need to make, because of building control and things that have changed, actually that budget needs to be uplifted, which would cover the design team and everything, the build and everything.
So that would be 3.85 million?
If we were going down the refurbishment route. But our preferred option is complete new build, because actually it would give us not just longevity, but it would also give us, the classrooms, SEN resource spaces, which, we need in Thurrock, more provision there. So.
Any further questions, Councillor?
So regarding this, I think it's 1.2. Sorry, Chair. Thank you. So recommendation 1.1 and 1.2, comparing like 1.2, I recommend it's my opinion only, 1.2 is better to go with that one, because it's a lifespan is 70 years so it will be more than 50 years extra, and it will be cost effective also. And also I'm having a concern about if we go to the new building. I have seen the planning structure. Is that one going to lose the greenery? So are the school going to lose the green area to play area? So just because in the building it shows that before that one is a green area, and second building it was showing that there is no green area. So I'm having a concern about if they approve 1.2 new building, are they going to have the play area or not in the school?
It's okay. That's okay. Because we will be looking at new build, so the existing building will then be demolished and they will then have that space back. So it's one or two options. We either do the refurbishment of the current building that's there, which is, you know, is quite old now, or we do new build and the old building is demolished and then you get extra space back.
Sorry, I forgot that there's more than one proposal here. So the other one is for the extra provision in Northview Avenue for the extra social, emotional, mental health provision. That also, from reading the report, makes sense because that's going to have an impact on our out of borough placements, so it's better for the children obviously to be able to stay within Thurrock and not have to travel. So I'm also minded to vote in favour of the preferred option on that, to agree that, and to get those places, you know, local to where the children live. That's going to be better for the children, and obviously it's going to mean a cost saving for the service, you know, in pressured where there's already budget pressures. So yeah, I think this is a good piece of work and happy to support those recommendations.
Yes.
Can I just add, because I did forget to mention this at the beginning, that there are two recommendations at 1.3, so those will be amended.
Okay, so it'll be 1.1 to 1.6, but it's a choice between 1.1 and 1.2. Yes. So yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, this is not in your maybe domain, but you know, can we ensure, you know, whenever we are with portfolio holder as well, you know, when we are kind of, you know, in terms of procurement or granting this contract, can we make sure there would be no extra cost, you know, because we have seen different projects, you know, going over the budget. So can we include something in our contract to make sure, you know, there wouldn't be any extra cost to us? Just
We do always add a contingency budget, you know, but sometimes there are things that are out of your control. We've had this costed up, you know, for both the SEMH base and for the main builds. But, you know, as you know, that inflationary price increases, all those things, sometimes we can't control that. We do the best that we can, and we will value engineer things down where we possibly can to stay within the budget envelope.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone? No. Okay, so there are quite a few recommendations to go through. So 1.1 and 1.2 are in either or, so I'll read first one out. Recommendation 1.1 option is to approve a 3.85 million budget for refurbishment works to allow for the expansion of Tilbury Pioneer Academy to be funded from the school's basic need capital funding 2023-2024. Take it that we're not going to be agreeing with that one. Is that universal? Yeah. Okay. So against that one. So we'll move to recommendation 1.2, which is the alternative, to approve a budget of 4.75 million for the new build works to allow for the expansion of Tilbury Pioneer Academy to be funded from the school's basic need capital funding 2023-2024.
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Okay. Recommendation 1.3, to approve the commencement of the procurement process in accordance with Council and UK procurement procedures to vary the appointment and scope of works to be undertaken by the multidisciplinary design team for the Tilbury Pioneer Expansion Project and appoint the principal contractors to take forward the proposed desired scheme. Disagreed?
Agreed.
Recommendation 1.4, that authority be delegated to the Director of Children's Services in consultation with the education portfolio holder to enter into any form of agreement following the award of the agreements arising from 1.2 above in compliance with the Council's procurement regulations.
Agreed.
Recommendation 1.5 is to approve a £1 million budget for alteration works at Northview Avenue, Tilbury, to allow for a secondary SEMH provision to be funded from SEN Capital Government Grant 2023-2024.
Agreed.
Agreed. Recommendation 1.6, note the recent...
Well, it's going to
'cause
be
we're going
1.6.
Yeah.
No, she's right.
Note the recent in-year accommodation works that have commenced and completed in order to ensure sufficient pupil placements for 2023 to 2024.
Agreed.
Okay. So we now move to item 12. So thank you very much again, Sarah, for the report.
Thank you, Sarah.
Item 12 is the work programme. I know that this is the last meeting of this municipal year, so I'm not sure there's anything actually written down, but if people have anything particular that to note, we can make a note of it.
I think
The Chief Operating Officer for the All2 Trust is Janet Clark, and when I met with her to go around the schools, she said that she'd be very willing to come and update. I think it's better to get it direct from the horse's mouth, as it were, so that we can get an accurate and up-to-date picture of what's happening.
Thank you, Chair. So the work programmes for the potential new ONS committees is currently being considered, and so I'll take it back for consideration for whoever's obviously going to be chairing for the next municipal year, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Are there any other items? No? Okay. So this is the last meeting of the municipal year, so I'd like to thank all the committee members, co-opted members, and of course all the officers, and especially for working and staying so late tonight. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your continued hard work, and I think it's been an interesting debate and useful debate this evening. So this now concludes the business of the meeting, and I declare the meeting closed at 22:59. Thank you all. Bye-bye.